Chapter 2:28. Although this planet was small, a day was very long. It was 27 hours and 10 minutes, which was even longer than Earth's rotation. This was because its rotation was relatively slow. When the sun rose, Yang Tian and Chu Yen Guiying sat on the little blue dragon's back and continued forward. With the low temperature last night, the current temperature of -34 degrees Celsius was simply incomparably warm for Chu Yen Guiying. Half an hour later, when a human building appeared in front of them, Yang Tian and Chu Yen Guiying were very regretful. If they had persisted for another half an hour last night, they wouldn't have had to suffer like that. Chu Yen Guiying suffered from the cold, but Yang Tian. It was obvious. A man hugging a naked woman, and nothing happened. It had to be said that Yang Tian's willpower was too strong. Back in the Antarctic ice field, if Yang Nancy hadn't used drugs, that kind of thing wouldn't have happened to them. The building in front of them looked very simple. It was a building made of dense black pillars holding up huge rocks. Although it looked simple, it gave off a very grand feeling. This was because this building was very big. It was rectangular, about 100 meters long, 50 meters wide, and 30 meters tall. It was made entirely of huge rock. Not to mention moving these huge rocks, just polishing the surface of these rocks wasn't a simple matter. The wind during the day was a lot weaker. The little blue dragon flew quickly and quickly landed in front of this huge building. This should be a temple-like building. After getting off the little blue dragon, Yang Tian saw a huge stone tablet in front of the door. There were some words carved on it. Seeing these words, Yang Tian knew that Chu Yen Guiying recognized them because they were all universal characters. One of the 6 guards of the temple, Wind Fire Beast Hall. Chu Yen Guiying frowned as she read the words. One of the 6 guards. Wind Fire Beast. Hearing these words, Yang Tian had a bad feeling. They couldn't have been sent here to deal with this beast, right? After Chu Yen Guiying finished reading, Yang Tian understood. If they wanted to leave this cold planet without food, they had to defeat the Wind Fire Beast mentioned on the tablet. This beast, called the Wind Fire Beast, was one of the 6 guards of the Super Star Divinity Temple. The tablet didn't mention the level and strength of the Wind Fire Beast. It was obvious that this huge temple-like building was where the Wind Fire Beast lived. And Yang Tian also heard of the name Super Star Divinity Temple for the first time. To be called a temple and a superstar, it must be very powerful. Squeak! The little azure dragon cried out excitedly. Its voice was full of fighting spirit. The little blue dragon could feel the beast's aura. It was obvious that the giant beast was inside. Yang Tian patted the little blue dragon, who had turned back into a mini dragon and was lying on his shoulder, and said with a smile, "Xiaolong, don't move. I'll go take a look first." The little blue dragon was a fearless guy. Even if it was a beast stronger than it, it would still dare to fight it. Perhaps this was the nature of a dragon. After Yang Tian finished speaking, the little blue dragon immediately jumped down from Yang Tian's shoulder and jumped onto a huge rock at the entrance of the temple. It opened its eyes wide and looked inside. Yang Tian turned his head and glanced at Chu Yen Guiying. Chu Yen Guiying understood what Yang Tian meant and nodded to Yang Tian. Although they hadn't known each other for long, Yang Tian and Chu Yen Guiying already had some tacit understanding. Some things didn't need to be said. Yang Tian held his blade and his figure flashed. He quickly entered the temple. The temple was supported by black stone pillars that were several meters in diameter. The pillars were separated by about 10 meters, and there weren't any exquisite decorations on them. Ever since he had become a domain lord, Yang Tian's control over his own strength had become even more exquisite. As he flashed, he didn't make any sound. After entering the temple, the light dimmed, but the temperature was much higher than outside. As he passed through the forest of pillars, a blue light suddenly entered Yang Tian's eyes. Yang Tian couldn't be more familiar with this blue light. Wasn't that the light emitted when the teleportation disc was activated? Yang Tian was delighted. The disk array placed here would definitely lead to somewhere else. Yang Tian didn't want to stay on such a harsh planet for long. It would be best if he could use the teleportation disk array to leave this place without much effort. However, Yang Tian also knew that there was no such thing, because there was a very dangerous mutated beast here, and the teleportation disk array was definitely guarded by a mutated beast called the giant wind fire beast. Yang Tian observed for a while, and felt the aura of the giant wind fire beast. However, he discovered that the aura of the beast was everywhere in the temple. This situation was very strange. In this vast temple, he actually couldn't sense the exact location of the giant wind fire beast. Suddenly, a chaotic flow of air appeared in the temple. Within this flow of air, Yang Tian could even smell a fishy smell. Yang Tian was shocked. This flow of air was clearly the breath of the giant wind fire beast. Yang Tian looked around, hoping to find traces of the mutated beast. However, he still couldn't find anything. The breath of the mutated beast just now was too chaotic, making it difficult for Yang Tian to determine the direction. Just how big was this mutated beast if its breath could cause a gust of wind? Yang Tian raised his head and looked at the huge building. Looking at the many pillars, a huge question mark appeared in his head. This temple was very big, but there were so many pillars in the interior space. It shouldn't be able to accommodate such a huge mutated beast. Even the T-Rex that he killed on planet Crimson Flame couldn't stay here. Yang Tian searched the entire temple again, but he didn't find anything. The area around the array disk that was emitting blue light was also empty. Nothing? However, this exotic beast really did exist. What was going on? Yang Tian narrowed his eyes and walked towards the disk array. Since this mutated beast didn't appear, he would lure it out. Yang Tian held the saber in his hand tightly and walked very slowly, careful of each way. What Yang Tian didn't know was that there were many eyes above him watching his every move. Not only that, in the dim light at the top of the temple, countless fleshy tentacles as thick as an adult's arm were moving between the pillars. They were like messy tree roots or countless earthworms entangled together. These fleshy tentacles were covered in mucus. It was because of this mucus that these fleshy tentacles didn't make any sound when they moved. As Yang Tian walked, he tightened his grip on the saber in his hand. He had already sensed a murderous aura in this spacious temple. Chapter 229. Boom, boom, boom. When Yang Tian walked to the formation plate, the entire temple began to shake. A large amount of rocks fell from the top as if it was raining. Yang Tian dodged the rocks as he looked up. The roof of the temple, which was originally dimly lit, now had cracks. The bright light from the stars shone in from the outside, making the entire temple brighter and brighter. At this time, Yang Tian finally saw the strange beast that had been circling around the top of the temple. The main body of this strange beast was like a mushroom that grew on the top of the temple, softly sticking to the top. This large mushroom was gray in color. In a dimly lit environment, and with the stone-like patterns on its surface, it was not easy to notice. At the edges of its irregular shape, there were long and dense tentacles. These tentacles were intertwined with each other. As the entire temple shook, they slithered down the thick stone pillars like snakes. Soon, they touched the ground and surrounded Yang Tian from all directions. Other than the stone pillars, there were even more gray tentacles hanging down from the top of the temple. Each tentacle was wriggling. It was a very horrifying and disgusting scene. Looking at the formation plate that was emitting blue light in front of him, Yang Tian lifted one of his feet and wanted to step on it. Of course, he was only testing it. Even if he could leave this place immediately, Yang Tian would not leave the little blue dragon, Chu Yan, and Gu Ying behind. Not to mention, he did not know if the formation plate's teleportation was two-way or not. Whoosh! He did not expect that as soon as he did that, a violent gust of wind would sweep over him. This gust of wind appeared very suddenly and was very fast. Yang Tian's body was swept up by the gust of wind. He spun a few times in the air uncontrollably and crashed into the stone pillar with a bang. There were many tentacles wrapped around the stone pillar. When he touched it, they were soft. Even with such a strong collision, the tentacles did not break. When Yang Tian's body was bounced back and landed on the ground, there were tentacles as thick as an arm underneath him. These tentacles were like waves of water, sweeping toward Yang Tian at a very fast speed. Yang Tian swung his saber and cut off a large number of tentacles. During this process, Yang Tian was surprised to find that the resistance his saber encountered was very strong. When he slashed at these fleshy tentacles, it was as if he was slashing at a steel rope. Moreover, the liquid on the surface of these fleshy tentacles was very slippery, which also interfered with his movements, making it impossible for him to fully utilize his strength. More transparent liquid flowed out of the severed tentacles. F***CK. What the hell is this? Yang Tian got up and screamed. He immediately rushed out of the temple. There were not many fleshy tentacles inside the divine high temple, so there were still many gaps. Before he could figure out the situation, it was best to leave. If one were to be wrapped up by this soft yet incomparably tough and numerous thing, one would be trapped to death here. Also, Yang Tian still couldn't figure out how the violent airflow was produced. Yang Tian could faintly feel that there was more than one ultra beast inside the divine high temple. Yang Tian's figure flashed and rushed out of the divine high temple at an extremely fast speed. Phew! When Yang Tian came out, he stopped in front of Chu Yan and Gu Ying and let out a long sigh of relief. How is it? Chu Yan and Gu Ying, who still didn't know what was going on, asked Yang Tian curiously. Yang Tian didn't know how to describe the situation inside. All he could do was frown and shake his head. At this time, the gigantic building in front of them was still shaking. Even the ground around it was shaking, as if there was an earthquake. Yang Tian, Chu Yan, Gu Ying, and the little blue dragon all stared at it without blinking. They wanted to see the final result. The giant wind and fire beasts had been alerted. They would soon reveal their true forms. Boom bang, bang, bang. Along with the shaking, the gigantic building began to disintegrate. The boulders at the top began to tilt, and the thick and fragile stone pillars began to collapse. When they hit the hard ground, they immediately shattered into pieces. This process lasted for more than 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, the divine high temple no longer existed. It had become a pile of rubble, and about 100 meters above the rubble, there was a gigantic ultra beast that looked like a jellyfish floating in the air. Originally, it was clinging to the top of the divine high temple. Its mushroom-like soft tissue had already merged together, forming a hemispherical object. On the edge of the hemispherical object, there were countless fleshy tentacles. The long fleshy tentacles parted in the shape of an umbrella from 100 meters above the ground. They quickly extended and touched the ground. After these fleshy tentacles landed on the ground, they immediately spread out and took up more and more space on the ground. No. There should be 2 ultra beasts. When Yang Tian and Chu Yan and Gu Ying saw this, they suddenly noticed that under the fleshy tentacle ultra beast, there was another spherical ultra beast that was almost transparent. This ultra beast was flat and round, and there were many trumpet-like objects protruding from its body. It was because of this almost transparent ultra beast that the fleshy tentacle ultra beast looked like it was floating in the air. Squeak! Seeing this, the little blue dragon roared twice with a strong desire to fight. It immediately flew into the air and transformed into a 100-meter-long dragon. Roar! The little blue dragon swam diagonally above the 2 ultra beasts, waved its dragon claws, and roared. The little blue dragon did not immediately attack the 2 ultra beasts. Instead, it stared coldly at the 2 ultra beasts that seemed to be stuck together. Whoosh! The little blue dragon did not move, but the ultra beast below that was almost transparent attacked the little blue dragon first. On its body, a trumpet-like organ suddenly enlarged, and the opening contracted, forming a tube that was small on the outside and large on the inside. It spat out air toward the little blue dragon in the air. When this ultra beast spat out air, it was very obvious that its body had shrunk a lot because of the air released. Even though they were 100 meters apart, this rapid air flow actually rolled up the huge little blue dragon several times in the air. Roar after the angry little blue dragon stabilized its body in the air, it roared and suddenly swooped down. It opened its mouth and spat out a scorching dragon flame at the two ultra beasts that were stuck together. After spitting out air at the little blue dragon, the ultra beast that was almost transparent began to breathe again, and its body quickly expanded. As it breathed in and out, the fleshy tentacle ultra beast's body also fell together, as if it was floating on the surface of water. When the little blue dragon's dragon flame came, the two huge ultra beasts did not dodge and allowed the dragon flame to fall on their bodies. Boom! With a roar, the fleshy tentacle ultra beast's body was ignited by the little blue dragon's dragon flame. It was as if the surface of this ultra beast's body was covered in gas oil. The fleshy tentacle ultra beast that was on fire did not seem to be in pain at all. Its entire body was burning, and it was covered with blue flames that were constantly floating. It looked very strange. Chapter 230. The temperature of the blue flames was extremely high. Even though they were 100 meters away, Yang Tian, Chu Yen and Gu Ying could feel the scorching heat. The temperature in the surroundings, which was originally a few dozen degrees below zero, instantly rose to a few dozen degrees. During this process, the temperature difference reached a few hundred degrees. The ice layer on the ground melted quickly, turning into water with white smoke rising from it, flowing down to the ground with a rustling sound. As the layer of ice melted, black rocks were exposed. What shocked Yang Tian and Chu Yen Guing was that there were countless human corpses among the messy black rock. Perhaps because these corpses were frozen under the ice, they did not rot. However, their skin was burnt black. Some of these corpses were holding weapons, some were wearing armor, and some were hugging each other. As the layer of ice melted, more and more corpses were exposed. Dozens, hundreds, thousands. There must have been a huge battle here a long time ago. Moreover, many people had surrounded and attacked these two strange beasts, but they had all been burned to death by these two strange beasts. Perhaps these two strange beasts had taken the initiative to come here and attack the humans who lived here. The second possibility was more likely because there was a huge temple-like building here. It was definitely not built by two strange beasts. Under the melted ice layer, and among the messy black rocks, traces of human buildings could be seen. The rising steam was like a fog, quickly enveloping the two strange beasts. The nearly transparent strange beast could no longer be seen. As for the strange beast with fleshy tentacles, it looked like it was floating in the clouds. Moreover, the temperature was still rising. Yang Tian and Chu Yen Gu Ying looked at the countless corpses with astonishment. They could not help but retreat rapidly. Only when they had retreated a few hundred meters did they feel less uncomfortable. At this moment, Yang Tian, Chu Yen and Gu Ying finally understood that the wind-fire beasts here were actually two mutated beasts. The mutated beast with a nearly transparent body should be a wind beast because it was able to spit out air currents at high speed, creating violent gales. The strange beast with countless fleshy tentacles should be the fire beast. Its body could burn and produce high-temperature flames. Two strange beasts combined. At this thought, Yang Tian's eyes suddenly widened. He said to Chu Yen and Gu Ying, "Run. Your speed isn't good. Run as far as you can. Be careful not to get burned by the fire." Chu Yen Guing was also very smart. Just like Yang Tian, she had already figured out what kind of attack the two strange beasts would produce. As soon as Yang Tian finished speaking, she turned and ran. The first target of the two strange beasts was the little blue dragon flying in the air. Perhaps to them, the little blue dragon was the greatest threat. Just now, the wind beast had spat out air at the little blue dragon. But now, the fire beast's body began to burn. A large number of fleshy tentacles suddenly extended and drilled into the wind beast's body. The wind beast's body was suddenly filled with blue flames. Boom! The wind beast once again breathed air at the little blue dragon. At this time, a large number of blue flames could be seen gathering within the wind beast's body. When it breathed air, it was actually a blue pillar of fire. The temperature of this pillar of fire was very high. The little blue dragon did not dare to use its body to take it head-on. Facing the blue pillar of fire that was quickly approaching, it immediately dodged. Boom! 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 And it was not just one pillar of fire. After the first pillar of fire was formed, even more pillars of fire were spat out from the wind beast's body. They had almost completely sealed off the little blue dragon's space of movement. The little blue dragon had no choice but to raise its head and fly straight into the sky. Only then was it able to barely dodge the hundreds of pillars of fire. Next, it was Yang Tian's turn. The two strange beasts did not forget about Yang Tian's existence. Boom! When the little blue dragon quickly escaped from the attack range, a blue pillar of fire was suddenly shot out from the wind beast's body and rushed toward Yang Tian. The pillar of fire was at least a few meters in diameter. Before it even touched Yang Tian's body, it was still dozens of meters away from Yang Tian. But Yang Tian could already feel a wave of heat coming toward him. In that instant, Yang Tian stomped on the ground and his body shot to the side, dodging the attack of the blue flames. The blue pillar of fire lasted for about 3 seconds. The black rock at the spot where Yang Tian was originally standing had been melted by the flames. Even from such a distance, the temperature of the blue flames was at least 2,000 degrees. These two strange beasts were too overpowered. Yang Tian dodged behind a giant rock, and couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Until now, Yang Tian still had not found a way to deal with these two strange beasts. That was because he didn't even have the chance to touch the two strange beasts. The temperature around the two strange beasts was simply too high. Even if he could get close to them, how could he kill them? These two strange beasts were simply too big. Localized damage would definitely not be able to kill them. Crackle! Boom! Yang Tian hid behind the giant rock and was thinking quickly. The little blue dragon had already turned around. Lightning flashed between its two dragon horns, and a thick electric current was formed. With a boom, it struck the fire beast's body. Crackle! Crackle! The powerful electric current enveloped the two strange beasts. Countless electric sparks flickered on the surface of their bodies, making crackling noises. During this process, Yang Tian could clearly see that the two strange beasts were constantly trembling. Not only that, the blue flames on the fire beast's body had suddenly become much smaller. It looked like it was about to be extinguished. Unfortunately, this powerful electric current only lasted for less than 2 seconds. Boom! When the electric current disappeared, the blue flames on the fire beast's body burned again. It looked even more vigorous than before. Crackle! Boom! When the little blue dragon saw that its electric current had a certain effect on the two strange beasts, it struck another powerful bolt of lightning and struck the two strange beasts. The situation was the same as before. What was different this time was that when the electric current disappeared, with a boom, the wind beast once again spat out a blue pillar of fire toward the little blue dragon in the air. This pillar of fire was thicker than all the previous ones, and it was even faster. The little blue dragon had long been on guard against the attacks of the two strange beasts below. Its body moved quickly in the air and dodged the wind beast's attack like lightning. Crackle! Boom! After dodging, the little blue dragon struck down another bolt of lightning. Boom! The two strange beasts once again struck back with a pillar of fire. With the little blue dragon temporarily attracting the wind beast's attack, Yang Tian had the opportunity to carefully observe and think about the weaknesses of the two strange beasts. During this process, Yang Tian noticed that after the wind beast spat out air, its body was like a deflated balloon. It was quickly shrinking, and the air it was replenishing its body could not keep up with the consumption. What about the fire beast? Yang Tian also noticed that the blue flames on the fire beast's body suddenly became smaller every minute. The substance that produced the blue flames was obviously the liquid on the fire beast's body. Chapter 231. Whether it was the wind beast's shrinking size or the fire beast's inability to keep its flames burning brightly, to Yang Tian, these were not the two beasts' weaknesses. They were simply too big. The little blue dragon continuously struck out dozens of lightning bolts. After expending a lot of energy, it climbed to a height where the wind beast could not reach and floated in the air to rest for a short while. The little blue dragon, which had swallowed a large amount of stellar crystals, had already stored a large amount of energy in its body. Otherwise, it would not have been able to strike out dozens of lightning bolts in one go. After the little blue dragon stopped, the wind beast attacked the little blue dragon a few times. Seeing that it was unable to hurt the little blue dragon, it stopped attacking the little blue dragon. Ho-ho-ho! At this moment, the wind beast, which had shrunk by a third due to the large amount of air it had spewed out, began to replenish the air in its body. Its body slowly grew larger. During this process, the air around its body sped up significantly, forming a rapidly flowing wind. A large amount of air rushed towards the wind beast, producing a whistling sound. Seeing this situation, Yang Tian did not know what to do for a moment. His mind was quickly thinking of a way to deal with these two strange beasts. Yang Tian believed that all strange beasts had a weakness. As long as he could find it, he would be able to deal a fatal blow to them. Yang Tian could not help but think of the time when he was on Earth. At that time, he had faced that huge mutated earthworm. Perhaps he could enter their bodies and kill them. Yang Tian looked at the two huge, strange beasts and squinted his eyes. Pung! As soon as this idea appeared, Yang Tian took action. He kicked off the ground and his body shot out from behind the boulder he was hiding behind. He quickly rushed towards the two strange beasts. It was only a few hundred meters away. Although the gravitational force of this planet was much stronger than on Earth, with Yang Tian's current speed, he would be able to reach the two strange beasts in about 5 seconds. The two strange beasts' reaction speed was also very fast. Although their bodies were huge and their overall movements were slow, their bodies were filled with offensive organs. As soon as Yang Tian moved, the wind beast reacted. Many tubes immediately formed on the surface of its body facing Yang Tian. Boom, 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 boom. Dozens of thick blue flames shot towards Yang Tian. Yang Tian's speed was very fast. However, the wind beast's attack range was also very large. It practically blocked Yang Tian's path forward. Yang, Chu Yen and Gu Ying, who were standing in the distance, couldn't help but cry out in shock when they saw this. From her point of view, Yang Tian's figure was instantly submerged in the sea of blue flames. One had to know that the temperature of this flame was very high. Even from 100 meters away, one would feel like they were being roasted, not to mention being directly burned by this flame. Chu Yen Gang only managed to utter a single word before stopping. This was because he discovered that Yang Tian's figure was actually flickering within the sea of blue flames. Seeing this, Chu Yen Gang clenched her fists. She was worried for Yang Tian. From afar, the flames that the wind beast spat out seemed to be continuous without any gaps. However, Yang Tian, who was in the midst of it, knew that there were at least several meters of gaps in these blue flames. Moreover, while he was moving at high speed, Yang Tian's body was filled with the power of the Dragon Ball. The power of the Dragon Ball that he released naturally formed an invisible defense on the surface of his body. When one's realm reached the Starlord realm, one would be able to release the power within one's body. When one reached the Master realm, one would be able to control energy more skillfully. Unfortunately, until now, Yang Tian still hadn't obtained a battle skill that was suitable for him. The battle skills on Earth were already outdated for the current Yang Tian. As for the skills that the masked man in black left behind before he left, they weren't suitable for the current Yang Tian. However, with the defense of the Dragon Ball's power, even if Yang Tian was temporarily enveloped by the flames, his body wouldn't be harmed. Pfft. Under the rapid charge, Yang Tian crashed into the Wind Beast. Yang Tian originally wanted to charge in through the Wind Beast's bell-like organ. However, he didn't expect the Wind Beast's reaction to be so fast. It immediately closed the organ. This time, Yang Tian was bounced back. His body flipped a few times in the air, and when he landed, he turned around and fled. Boom, 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 once again, the Wind Beast spat out dense pillars of fire toward Yang Tian. Yang Tian listened to the wind to determine its location. His body flashed as he dodged the pillars of fire coming from behind him. After a few seconds, he had returned to a safe distance. This was a test that lasted less than 15 seconds. Seeing that Yang Tian had escaped and was out of its attack range, the Wind Beast once again took a deep breath to replenish the air in its body. It was ready for the next attack at any time. Phew, Yang Tian let out a long sigh and shook his head. The test just now made him understand that it would be very difficult to realize his previous idea. That was because the Wind Beast's reaction speed was much faster than he had expected. Secondly, when he approached the Wind Beast, the chaotic airflow around the Wind Beast had greatly affected his movements. Entering the Wind Beast's body was actually a very risky method. If he entered the Wind Beast's body and couldn't kill it in a short time, it would be troublesome if he was trapped inside. Standing in the distance, Yang Tian helplessly thought that it would be great if he had a few cannons right now. He could fire at these two exotic beasts from a distance. Even if he couldn't kill them, he could still vent his anger. In a very short time, the Wind Beast's body was filled with the air it had used up. Its body became even bigger than before. What happened next shocked Yang Tian, Chu Yan, and Gu Ying once again. Because after the Wind Beast had its fill of air, a puff sound was heard. It actually flew up with the Fire Beast. Under the Wind Beast's round body, as it rose up, one could see that there were already dozens of trumpet-shaped nozzles under its body. These nozzles were like the nozzles of a rocket launcher. These nozzles were rapidly spraying out air. When the Wind Beast flew off the ground, its speed was very fast. It was even faster than the rocket launchers created by humans. At the same time, it could also change the direction of its flight. After flying into the air, the Wind Fire Beasts rushed towards the little blue dragon that was originally hovering above them. Roar, crackle, boom, facing the two beasts that were rushing towards it, the little blue dragon roared. Lightning flashed between its horns, and a thick pillar of electricity fell and struck the two beasts. The electricity that the little blue dragon emitted had some effect on the two beasts. After being struck by the powerful electricity, the Wind Beast's body swayed in the air. However, it quickly adjusted its direction and continued to rush towards the little blue dragon. Yang Tian, Chu Yan, and Gu Ying looked at all of this with their eyes wide open. They couldn't help but worry for the little blue dragon. The universe was vast, and there were all kinds of strange things. All kinds of life could exist. This ball-shaped Wind Beast might look like a living thing, but it was actually a sophisticated machine. Boom, 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 in the process of flying, when the Wind Beast brought the Fire Beast close to the little blue dragon, it once again shot out pillars of fire at the little blue dragon. Previously, the Wind and Fire Behemoth was fixed on the ground, and the little azure dragon was able to easily avoid the flame pillars that the Wind Behemoth shot out. But now, the Wind Behemoth's flying speed was very fast, just like a high-speed jet plane. It could also constantly change its direction, making it difficult for the little azure dragon to dodge. The little blue dragon's flying speed was also very fast. From time to time, it would fire back with lightning. Yang Tian, we can try to use our spiritual power to attack. When the Wind Fire Beasts were in the air and Yang Tian was thinking, Chu Yan Guiying came to Yang Tian's side and suggested to Yang Tian. Actually, there was no need for Chu Yan Guiying to remind him. Yang Tian had already thought of it. His sixth sense told him that if they wanted to kill these two beasts as soon as possible, spiritual power would play a key role. Yang Tian looked at Chu Yen Guiying and nodded. Next, the two of them raised their heads and looked at the situation in the sky. The two beasts and the little blue dragon had been fighting in the sky for about 15 minutes. Finally, the wind beast's body had shrunk to 2/3 of its original size. It was forced to land. The wind beast did not have wings, nor did it have the amazing ability to fly like the little blue dragon. It could only fly by breathing out air. Once it ran out of air, it could no longer fly. As they were descending, the little blue dragon continued to chase after them. It unleashed bolts of lightning on the two beasts so that the wind beast would not have enough time to replenish its air. Boom! With a loud sound, the two beasts landed on the ground. Their heavy bodies caused the ground to tremble. Bang! The little blue dragon quickly dove down. Just as it was about to touch the fire beast, it suddenly rose up and swept its tail at the fire beast. This was a bold attempt by the little blue dragon. The little blue dragon could spit out dragon flames, but that did not mean that its body could resist the burning of the blue flames. That was because the two flames produced different energies. It was like a poisonous creature. Its own venom could not harm itself, but it would be poisoned to death by other poisonous creatures. When the fire beast was hit, the wind beast's body was instantly flattened. However, it quickly bounced back to its original shape like an inflated rubber ball. The little blue dragon was also at a disadvantage. Although its tail had only made contact with the blue flames for a brief moment, the strange blue flames still managed to stick to its tail. The pain from the burning caused the little blue dragon to involuntarily roll a few times in the air. It had to swing its tail a few times before the blue flames on its tail were extinguished. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Yang Tian quickly rushed toward the two beasts with his sword in hand. When he was about a dozen meters away from the two beasts, Yang Tian slashed with his sword. Hiss! A red ray of light lit up and formed into a crescent-shaped energy blade that rushed toward the two beasts. As the crescent-shaped energy blade flew, it became bigger and bigger. In an instant, it had grown to a length of dozens of meters. Pfft! In an instant, the energy blade came into contact with the wind beast and cut a huge gash on the wind beast's body. At the same time, the fleshy tentacles of the fire beast that were wrapped around the wind beast were also cut off by the energy blade. Once these fleshy tentacles were separated from the main body, they quickly burned and quickly turned into a pile of black ashes. Seeing this, Yang Tian's eyes widened. He did not expect that his first attempt would produce such a powerful force. Chapter 232. With Yang Tian's current strength, if it weren't for the help of his spirit power, it would be impossible for him to make such a mysterious slash. This was because once the energy left the body and left the range of control, it would dissipate. It would be impossible for the energy to be concentrated and cause any damage to the target. Apart from the huge wound on the wind beast's body, it also formed a gully on the ground. It started from a few meters in front of Yang Tian and extended straight to the two beasts. The closer it got to the two beasts, the deeper the gully became. Yang Tian was stunned when he saw the saber move that he had created on a whim. While Yang Tian was still in a daze, the wound on the wind beast's body began to slowly close. It only took about 10 seconds for the wound to disappear. After the wound closed, the side of the wind beast's body that was facing Yang Tian suddenly became densely packed tubular jet. Seeing this situation, Yang Tian instantly came to his senses and turned to run. Boom, 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 boom. Dozens of thick blue pillars of fire shot toward Yang Tian. Just like before, Yang Tian quickly dodged and escaped the wind beast's attack range in a few seconds. Chu Yen and Gu Ying came to Yang Tian's side and looked at Yang Tian with admiration. This slash, how did you do it? That slash just now. Yang Tian scratched his head and tried to recall. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. When Yang Tian returned, the little blue dragon didn't want to give the wind beast a chance to adjust. It swooped down from the sky again and shot out a bolt of lightning. Facing the little blue dragon's attack, the wind beast didn't have time to deal with Yang Tian and immediately began to fight back. Because there wasn't much gas left in its body, the wind beast's fire pillars weren't as fast as before. Pung! The little blue dragon took advantage of the gap between the wind beast's attack and smacked the fire beast with its tail again. The fire beast was like a hat attached to the wind beast's body. The little blue dragon's attack was equivalent to hitting the wind beast's body, causing the wind beast to bear a huge force. The air it had just inhaled was immediately released by the little blue dragon's attack. The little blue dragon endured the pain and swung its tail a few times in the air to get rid of the blue flames on its tail. Even if they maintained this state, as long as Yang Tian and the little blue dragon continued to waste time with the two giant beasts, victory was only a matter of time. However, it was hard to predict how long it would take. With a quick way to end the battle, Yang Tian naturally didn't want to waste time with these two giant beasts. Just now, I used my mental power to wrap my own power and sent it out with the saber. I feel that this saber also played a role in this process. Yang Tian recalled the previous situation, raised the red saber in his hand, and muttered to himself. Yang Tian thought carefully about the saber that he had suddenly thought of. He felt that it wasn't that simple. Yang Tian had indeed used his mental power to fuse with the power of the Dragon Ball in the saber before slashing out. During this short process, he controlled the power in the saber to leave the saber and attack the wind and fire beasts. At this point, Yang Tian still didn't know the result of this slash. However, after the slash, the power in the saber indeed left the saber and flew out, forming a crescent-shaped wind blade. The strange thing was that this wind blade was red. As the red wind blade moved forward, Yang Tian's mental power began to dissipate. The further the wind blade was from him, the faster it dissipated. As a result, the wind blade became bigger and bigger, and finally became dozens of meters long. What if the distance was more than 100 meters? It would have probably dissipated. What a strange way of using power! After listening to Yang Tian's explanation, Chu Yen Gying couldn't help but sigh. In her opinion, Yang Tian was simply a genius among geniuses. Yang Tian's physical strength was needless to say. Even in terms of mental power, which she was familiar with, Yang Tian was amazing. Of course, the reason why Chu Yen Gying thought so was because she didn't know that Yang Tian had the Dragon Ball world in his body. Another slash. Under Chu Yen Gying's admiring gaze, Yang Tian excitedly said, "The saber in his hand played a big role in that slash just now. Especially when the power was released, it made Yang Tian feel as if the saber was a part of his body. If it was a saber made of white alloy, it definitely wouldn't be able to achieve that effect." The little blue dragon and the fiery wind beast fought for a few minutes. When it saw Yang Tian rushing towards the fiery wind beast again, it immediately turned around and flew to the side. The little blue dragon didn't want to be hit by Yang Tian's slash just now. In the little blue dragon's perception, Yang Tian's slash just now was filled with a dangerous aura. Perhaps it was because this saber had killed a dragon before. Yang Tian quickly moved forward. In the blink of an eye, he was about 30 meters away from the fiery wind beast. In the process of moving forward, Yang Tian poured a large amount of the power of the Dragon Ball and mental power into the red saber in his hand. Buzz buzz buzz, the red saber in Yang Tian's hand constantly let out a dragon's roar. The slash just now was just an experiment for Yang Tian. The power of the Dragon Ball and mental power he poured into the saber wasn't much. However, it was different this time. He had to at least give it his all. In Yang Tian's perception, the power of the Dragon Ball was driven by the countless strands of mental power formed by the Xiaolong. It constantly flowed through his arm and into the saber. This was the first time Yang Tian poured so much power into the red saber. When Yang Tian stood still and was about to slash out a second time, the red saber in his hand lit up. It looked as if it had just been taken out from a charcoal furnace. Boom! In a part of Yang Tian's perception, he suddenly saw a red space. It turned out that this saber named 15 actually had a space within the saber. At this moment, Yang Tian didn't have time to study this saber. When the fiery wind beast noticed him, he once again held the saber with both hands. His legs kicked off the ground and he jumped high. Yang Tian used all his strength to jump and reached a height of more than 100 meters. Ha! Yang Tian shouted and slashed out with his saber. Hiss! With a soft sound, a red line lit up and instantly turned into a red wind blade in the shape of a crescent moon. It rushed toward the two beasts diagonally below. This wind blade was even redder than the previous one. It was as if it was condensed from blood. When this wind blade was released, Yang Tian felt a huge force coming from the red wind blade. Yang Tian's eyes widened. He used his strong willpower to control this energy so that it wouldn't dissipate immediately. This was because he knew that the more condensed the energy, the more destructive it would be. However, as this wind blade got further and further away from him, Yang Tian's control over it became weaker and weaker. The red wind blade was still growing at an extremely fast speed. Poof! Boom! This process seemed to take a long time, but it only took a moment. When the wind blade was about to touch the fiery wind beast, the wind blade also became dozens of meters long. It slashed on the fiery wind beast's body and made a muffled sound, followed by a roar. After this wind blade cut open the fiery wind beast's body, it sank into the ground. Yang Tian's willpower no longer had any restraint over this kind of power. The ground couldn't restrain this kind of power. In the process of the wind blade's power dispersing, the sand and stones were squeezed by the power, causing an explosion. At this time, Yang Tian's body hadn't even landed on the ground. In the black sand produced by the explosion, Yang Tian was pleasantly surprised to find that this saber actually cut the fiery wind beast's huge body in half. What a powerful force! Even though this was his own attack, Yang Tian couldn't help but exclaim in his heart. Purring! Yang Tian landed on the ground. Both his feet sank into the ground. There was a swirling current of air around the wind beast. When it was cut open from the fiery beast's body, this current immediately weakened, but it also took away the black sand produced by the explosion. When the black sand dispersed, what appeared in front of Yang Tian's eyes was a sphere that had already turned gray. This was the wind beast's body. What was different from what Yang Tian had imagined was that the inside of the wind beast's body wasn't transparent. Instead, it was gray. It was filled with bubble-like tissues, and between each bubble, there were pipes that were thicker than an arm connecting them. The wind beast that had been cut in half didn't seem to be completely dead. The tubular organs on the surface of its body continued to squirm, and from time to time, they would spurt out streams of air, making poof, poof, poof sounds. As for the fiery beast that was stuck to the wind beast's body, it had also been cut in half. The blue flames on its body had already been extinguished. At the place where the flat-shaped fiery beast's body had been cut open, there were granular organs. After some of the granular organs were cut open, a large amount of transparent liquid flowed out. Looking at this kind of liquid, Yang Tian guessed that this was the fuel of the fiery beast. The two beasts that had been cut in half didn't die. The fleshy feelers at the edge of the fiery beast's body were still squirming. At the place where the fiery beast had been cut, small fleshy feelers slowly grew out. The newly grown fleshy feelers quickly entangled with each other. It was obvious that after a while, the two halves of the fiery beast's body would merge back together again. It was the same for the wind beast. There weren't any fleshy feelers growing out of its body, but a large amount of translucent liquid flowed out from its body. After the liquid flowed out, its color began to turn white, and it became drier and drier. This wind beast was very likely to split into two complete wind beasts like a cell. Boom! When the little blue dragon saw that the two beasts weren't dead yet, it swooped down and spat out hot dragon flames at the two beasts that had been cut in half. Yang Tian, who had reacted, quickly ran forward, raised his sword again, and slashed at the two beasts. This slash and the slash just now were in the shape of a cross. The little blue dragon's dragon flames once again ignited the fiery beast's body. Poof boom! Yang Tian's slash directly cut the two beasts that were still recovering into 4 pieces. The wind beast that had been cut into 4 pieces like a watermelon and the fire beast that had been cut into 4 pieces could no longer fight back. They could only let Yang Tian and the little blue dragon attack them. Yang Tian and the little blue dragon knew that the body structure of these two beasts was very strange. They wouldn't be killed so easily. Taking advantage of the fact that they couldn't fight back was the best opportunity to kill them. Even if their bodies were cut into several pieces and they could still survive, there must be a limit, right? The little blue dragon continued to spit out dragon flames, and from time to time, it would also release a bolt of lightning. Yang Tian also continued to swing his sword, surrounding the two beasts and releasing wind blades from different angles. Chapter 233. Huff, huff, huff. Yang Tian's shoulders heaved up and down as he looked at the charred corpses of the fire-wind beasts in front of him. He was panting heavily, clearly exhausted. He had slashed out over 100 wind blades in a row. Whether it was the power of the Dragon Ball or his mental strength, he was about to reach his limit. The little blue dragon was the same. After the battle, it immediately descended and transformed into a mini-dragon, lying on a black rock beside Yang Tian to rest. It really wasn't easy to kill these two giant beasts. The result was just as Yang Tian had expected. Although these two giant beasts had extremely strong self-healing abilities and could survive even if their bodies were cut into several pieces, it wasn't unlimited. They were actually like earthworms. If an earthworm was cut into 2 or 3 pieces, it could become 2 or 3 earthworms. However, if an earthworm was cut into minced meat, it wouldn't be able to survive no matter what. Yang Tian had slashed the fire-wind beasts' bodies into at least 1,000 pieces. Naturally, they couldn't survive any longer. They were burned into a pile of charcoal by the little blue dragon's dragon flames. Chu Yen Guang walked over while Yang Tian was panting. Chu Yen Guang waved her staff at Yang Tian and the little blue dragon. A strange energy enveloped Yang Tian and the little blue dragon, making Yang Tian and the little blue dragon feel a refreshing aura. Their bodies were instantly filled with vitality. This is a healing technique that uses mental strength. Mental strength produces waves of a special frequency that can be absorbed by living things. Chu Yen Guang explained as she released her mental strength. Yang Tian understood. Chu Yen Guang's so-called healing technique was actually to replenish the energy of living things' cells and increase their metabolism. Yang Tian was shocked. He didn't expect mental strength to have such a miraculous effect. He had to learn this healing technique. Yang Tian looked at Chu Yen and Gu Ying and smiled. Seeing Yang Tian's sparkling eyes filled with expectation, Chu Yen Guang understood Yang Tian's intention and immediately explained it to Yang Tian. Yang Tian quickly understood that the healing art was actually using one's mental power to replenish the energy of other living beings. Fertility was transforming one's mental power into energy that could be absorbed by other living beings. According to Chu Yen Guang, this was the conclusion of countless generations of mental power powerhouses on Ipa. It only took a few minutes for Yang Tian to learn it. Under Chu Yen Guang's treatment, Yang Tian and the little blue dragon felt their fatigue disappear, saving them a lot of time. If he wanted to leave this place, he had to find the disc array. Now that the temple had collapsed, he didn't know if the array disc was buried under the rubble. Yang Tian and Chu Yen Guang looked at the ruins in front of them and frowned. With such a huge pile of rubble, it would take a long time to dig out the disc array. After the giant fiery wind beast died, the surrounding temperature dropped rapidly. In less than 10 minutes, It was as if they had gone from a hot summer to a cold winter. The water in the air turned into tiny ice particles and fell to the ground. A new layer of ice quickly formed on the ground. It wouldn't be long before this pile of rubble was covered with ice again. It wasn't easy to move these black boulders in such cold weather. Many of the boulders were so big that they had to be cut into pieces. Just as Yang Tian and Chu Yen Guang were worrying, a faint blue light suddenly emerged from the pile of rubble. Seeing this blue light, Yang Tian and Chu Yen Guang laughed. If that wasn't a disarray, then what was it? Crack! Yang Tian took a step forward and stepped on the leg of a dismembered corpse, causing a crisp sound to ring out. Yang Tian looked down and immediately lifted his foot. The reason why the corpses that were left here didn't turn into charcoal was because their bodies hadn't been in contact with the flames for a long time. Or rather, they didn't even come into contact with the flames before their bodies were cooked by the high temperature. Then, under the low temperature, the corpses were frozen and preserved until now. When they were fighting with the giant fiery wind beast, Yang Tian and Chu Yen Guang didn't have the time to care about these corpses. Now they had the time and energy to observe these corpses. What is this? At this time, Chu Yen Guang looked at something on the ground that looked like a storage bracelet and asked. After she finished speaking, she immediately bent down and picked up the black metal bracelet. She held it in her hand and observed it. Looking at the black ring-shaped item in Chu Yen Guang's hand, Yang Tian curiously approached Chu Yen Guang. Chu Yen Guang looked at it, shook her head, and said, "It's not a storage bracelet. It's just an accessory." Yang Tian took it from Chu Yen Guang's hand and looked at it. Suddenly, he had an idea and infused a portion of the Dragon Ball's power into the black ring-shaped item in his hand. Buzz crack! Yang Tian's Dragon Ball caused the ring-shaped item to vibrate and let out a buzzing sound. But then, the item shattered. It really was just an accessory. Yang Tian threw away the metal pieces in his hand in disappointment and clapped his hands. His powerful Dragon Ball's power had almost turned this item into dust. Just as the two of them were about to step forward and dig out the disc array, suddenly, there was a fluctuation in the space not far from them. A large number of items appeared in the air and fell to the ground. There were many items, and they were all piled up in a messy pile. It turned out that this was really a storage bracelet. Otherwise, how could these items appear out of thin air? Curious, Yang Tian and Chu Yen Guang came to the messy pile of items. At least half of the items in the pile were water and food. The water was in a cylinder, and most of the food was fresh meat. Other than that, there were some things that looked like charcoal and a few strange-looking weapons. Yang Tian picked up a rectangular piece of black charcoal and scraped it with his fingernail, scraping off some black powder from it. Then, he pulled it open to take a look. His guess was right. These were all charcoal. Yang Tian circulated the Dragon Ball's power and gathered it in his hand. The dragon flame contained in the Dragon Ball's power immediately ignited this piece of charcoal. Once the charcoal was ignited, it turned red and produced an extremely high temperature. Yang Tian casually threw the burning charcoal away. The burning charcoal fell to the ground and came in contact with the thin ice, making a sizzling sound. Next, Yang Tian and Chu Yen Guang began to rummage through the pile, hoping to find something useful. After rummaging through the entire pile, Yang Tian, Chu Yen, and Guing only found some oddly shaped, colorful, and fist-sized ores. There was also a silver-white golden box. This silver-white box was only the size of Yang Tian's palm. It was rectangular and 3 centimeters thick. After opening the box, there was something that looked like a smartphone made by humans. Seeing this high-tech item, Yang Tian's eyes widened and he couldn't help but mutter to himself, "What is this? Ipa Planet didn't have such high-tech items." Chu Yen Guang was even more confused and could only shake her head. Chapter 234. On the surface of this smartphone-like object, there were many neatly arranged triangular black and smooth parts, very similar to the screen of a phone that was turned off. Yang Tian counted. There were a total of 99 of them, with 9 of them arranged in a row, making a total of 11 rows. In addition to these black triangular small screens, there were 2 small protruding dots on the upper left corner. Yang Tian thought for a moment and pressed on the leftmost. When he pressed it, Yang Tian did not use much strength, but he could clearly feel the small dot shrink. When he let go of his finger, the small dot bounced back. After pressing this small dot, Yang Tian waited for a moment, but there was no reaction. Yang Dao pressed another small dot. The touch was exactly the same as before. Under Yang Tian's anticipation, there was finally a reaction. The 99 triangular small screens suddenly lit up. Strangely, the light emitted by the 99 triangular small screens was completely different from each other. After these small screens lit up, a very beautiful little girl appeared in the light they projected. No, it should be called a little girl. She had long blue hair and wore a white low-cut dress. Her body was curvy and her face was beautiful. She was obviously a miniature version of a mature woman. As soon as this little girl appeared, she looked at Yang Tian and Chu Yen Guing and actually opened her mouth to speak. "You are not my master. Who are you?" The little girl spoke in the universal language. Her voice was clear and pleasant to the ears, and it did not sound like a synthetic voice at all. We are indeed not your master. Your master died a long time ago." When Yang Tian saw this little girl, he was actually not surprised. This was because with the current human technology on Earth, such a scene could be created. It was just that it was not as realistic as this. This little girl was obviously created by an artificial intelligence program. When Chu Yen Guing saw this scene, her eyes widened in surprise. She still could not understand the situation in front of her. If this situation happened on Earth today, even a child of a few years old would not be as surprised as she was. When she heard Yang Tian say that her master had died, a sad expression appeared on the little girl's face. "What is your master's name? Where did he come from?" Yang Tian looked at the fake expression on the little girl's face and asked with a smile. Sure enough, the little girl created by the artificial intelligence program immediately calmed down after Yang Tian asked the question. She said, "My master's name is Gu Zhuixing. He is a male with a recorded age of 1078. He came from Karen planet." When Yang Tian asked, the little girl reported a more detailed information. Yang Tian nodded. At this time, the little woman said, "Master removed the self-destruct program when he was alive, so you can now become my new master. I am the AI program of this intelligent daily life instrument. I have 60% self-awareness, and my computing speed is..." Yang Tian did not really understand the unit of data that the young girl reported later on. However, he knew that this high-tech product could now belong to him. "Okay. You belong to me now. My name is Yang Tian, I am 20 years old this year." Yang Tian immediately said after the AI program finished speaking. "Okay. Please wait a moment. Begin to delete the previous master's life information. Delete successful. Begin to detect Yang Tian's life information." The little girl created by the artificial intelligence program kept reminding him. About 5 minutes later, the master recognition process was completed. From now on, this artificial intelligence auxiliary device belonged to Yang Tian. The artificial intelligence program's current appearance was used by the person called Yang Tian. Yang Tian naturally had to change it. What should he change it to? Yang Tian started thinking. It had to be female. That was for sure. To men, a female's appearance was more beautiful. This was also a man's instinct. Qin Fei? Yang Tian first thought of Qin Fei, but he quickly shook his head. He felt that this was not good. Why was it not good? Yang Tian could not say. Perhaps this artificial intelligence auxiliary device was just a tool and Yang Tian could not accept it. Chu Yen Guing was not bad. Yang Tian glanced at Chu Yen Guing and saw that her eyes were wide open. She was very curious, so he gave up on this idea. After thinking about it, Yang Tian finally chose Yang Nancy. Speaking of which, Yang Nancy was Yang Tian's first real woman. Next, after thinking about it, it was time to put it into practice. Please choose male or female, the little girl created by the artificial intelligence program asked after Yang Tian confirmed the image change. Female, Yang Tian replied. Something that surprised Yang Tian happened. The little girl created by Cheng Ning said, "Revert to default image. Begin the change." As soon as she finished speaking, the little girl suddenly enlarged to the size of a real person. Her face was very beautiful, and she had smooth, snow-white skin and a very good figure. This initial 3D image was very realistic. Even the hair on her body was very clear. Looking up at this beautiful naked woman, Yang Tian's face turned red. This was completely different from what he had expected. Seeing Yang Tian's embarrassed look, Chu Yen Gain could not help but laugh. Next, Yang Tian could only brace himself and follow the instructions given by the artificial intelligence program. He placed the artificial intelligence auxiliary device on the ground and used his hands to fix the woman's body, restoring the image of Yang Nancy in his impression. Yang Tian understood that this was a small game created by the manufacturer of this artificial intelligence device. It was interesting and somewhat stimulating for men. Soon, Yang Tian calmed down and became very focused. After about 15 minutes, under Yang Tian's modification, the woman created by the artificial intelligence program was exactly the same as Yang Nancy. Yang Tian designed a cheongsam for this image. After completing the image design, Yang Tian picked up the artificial intelligence auxiliary device from the ground and confirmed it. The simulated Yang Nancy shrank into a little girl more than 10 centimeters tall. From now on, you'll be called Nancy. Yang Tian looked at the simulated woman and nodded in satisfaction. To Yang Tian, this was just an interlude. Nancy, what's Guzhue doing here? Yang Tian asked after changing his voice to Yang Nancy's. When he asked this question, Yang Tian had already guessed that the person named Guzhue was definitely not an exiled person. This was because an exiled person should not have such advanced things. The renamed artificial intelligence program, Nancy replied, "They are here to find the underground palace. A long time ago, a goddess of the superstar temple left the superstar temple and traveled to many exiled planets. When she disappeared, she took many things from the temple and scattered them on several planets as rewards for those who succeeded in clearing the levels." Chapter 235. Upon hearing the words Superstar God Temple again, Yang Tian frowned. His intuition told him that he would have a dispute with the Superstar God Temple after leaving the Death Star field. This thought that suddenly appeared in his mind disappeared in a flash. Following this, Yang Tian focused all his attention on the two words Underground Palace. He had spent a lot of effort to kill these two exotic beasts, so he should be able to get some benefit. Yang Tian learned from Nancy's explanation that the wind and fire exotic beasts were one of the 6 beast guards of the Superstar God Temple. To put it bluntly, they were like 2 watchdogs raised by humans. However, these 2 dogs were raised freely and placed in special places to guard the gate. Most of the people who had died there had come for the legendary treasure left behind by a goddess of the Superstar God Temple. There were many powerhouses in the universe. If Yang Tian could kill the wind and fire exotic beasts even though he was a domain lord of the meteorite star field, why hadn't this treasure been taken yet? Moreover, so many people had died? After listening to Nancy's explanation, Yang Tian understood 2 reasons. First, the treasure left behind by the goddess wasn't very attractive to powerhouses above the planet grade. The people who came there to obtain the treasure were basically powerhouses at the meteorite star field. It would be very difficult for cultivators at the meteorite star field to kill these 2 exotic beasts. Second, this planet was one of the forbidden grounds of the superstar god temple. It was located in the Death Star field, and very few people knew its exact location. The powerhouses who came there all risked being punished by the superstar god temple. At the same time, Yang Tian also knew that the Superstar God Temple was a very powerful organization in the universe that controlled an extremely vast star field. It seems like things aren't that simple, Yang Tian murmured to himself after Nancy finished speaking. Where is the underground palace? Yang Tian asked after a moment of silence. Nancy replied, I don't know. Although Nancy replied in such a manner, Yang Tian's heart skipped a beat and he smiled. He had already guessed it. After Yang Tian gave Nancy the command to shut it down, he put the intelligent assistance device into his storage bracelet. There were still many corpses in the underground ice layer. Yang Tian had no interest in searching the corpses. If these people really had something good on them, they wouldn't have kept it until now. After all, not all of the people who died here were killed by the wind and fire beasts. Boom! Pring! Among the piles of rocks, Yang Tian moved away a huge rock that weighed several thousand kilograms. The array disk that was radiating a pale blue light was finally revealed. Seeing that the disk array was in operation, Yang Tian stepped onto the disk array with anticipation. Chu Yen and Gu Ying also followed Yang Tian's footsteps and stood on the array disk. When the intense blue light in front of him disappeared, Yang Tian discovered that, as he had expected, they had been sent to a stone room by the array disk. The stone chamber was not very large. However, before the two of them were two doors. There were words in the middle of the doors. Chu Yen and Gu Ying, who could read the words, frowned and said to Yang Tian, This is a choice. Go to the left and you'll get a combat skill. Go to the right and you'll get a lot of stellar crystals. No matter how many people come here, they can only go to one place. If they go to both sides at the same time, the self-destruct program will be activated. Should he choose a combat skill or a lot of stellar crystals? This was not a multiple-choice question for Yang Tian. He would definitely choose a combat skill. However, to Chu Yen and Gu Ying, who cultivated mental power, stellar crystals were more important than combat skills. Their expectations were different. After the smart Chu Yen Gu Ying finished speaking, she smiled and said, Yang Tian, I'll listen to you. Yang Tian nodded with a smile. Don't worry, I'll make it up to you. After that, Yang Tian stepped into the door on the left. In this small stone room, there were also many glowing dots on the ceiling a few meters above the ground. The light gathered there was brighter than the light outside. Both doors were pitch black in front of them. When Yang Tian, Chu Yen, and Gu Ying entered the stone door one after another, the stone door behind them closed with a loud rumble. Once the stone door closed, the light that shone in from the outside was cut off. It was so dark that one could not even see one's own fingers. Chu Yen Gu Ying channeled her mental power. The ruby on her staff lit up and emitted a bright red light, illuminating the space within tens of meters. When Yang Tian turned around, he was shocked to find that the stone door behind him had disappeared. Ta ta ta. At this moment, footsteps were heard in front of them. Yang Tian stared in the direction of the sound. He squinted his eyes and gripped his saber tightly, ready to fight at any time. Soon, a white-haired person wearing blue armor and holding a blue saber appeared in front of Yang Tian and Gu Ying. Other than her long white hair, her entire body was covered in blue armor. However, Yang Tian could tell at a glance that this person was a woman. The female warrior in blue armor quickly came to a stop 10 meters away from Yang Tian and Gu Ying. She said, Star-slashing saber technique, begin teaching. It was indeed a woman. Her voice was soft and beautiful. As soon as she finished speaking, she began to wave the blue saber in her hand. Her figure flashed quickly. Yang Tian watched with rapt attention. Every movement of the female warrior in blue armor appeared in his eyes clearly. When the female warrior in blue armor was practicing her saber technique, she did not make any sound. Yang Tian could not sense any life force from her. In other words, the female warrior in blue armor was only a 3D projection. Huff! After about 5 minutes, the female warrior in blue armor put away her saber. Her figure became fainter and fainter until it disappeared. At this moment, Yang Tian could not help but let out a long breath. In these 5 minutes, he was highly focused. He did not miss any of the female warrior's movements. From the moment the female warrior began to perform her saber technique to the end, he did not even blink his eyes. This was the first time Yang Tian had been so focused. Although it was only 5 minutes, and he was only watching her movements, he felt as if he had been fighting with an opponent of the same level for days and nights. It was very tiring. This kind of tiredness was not physical, but mental. Yang Tian did not know if the female warrior would repeat the technique after she finished practicing it. Just in case, he had to memorize it the first time he watched it. Although he was tired, Yang Tian was very excited. This was the first time he had seen such an exquisite saber technique. After watching the saber technique, Yang Tian used a few minutes to recall it. When he was sure that he had remembered everything and would not forget it, he could not help but step forward and immediately began to practice the saber technique. In the eyes of Chu Yan and Gu Ying, when Yang Tian was practicing the saber technique, he was much more imposing than the female warrior. However, his speed was at least 10 times slower. After Yang Tian finished practicing the saber technique, called star-slashing saber, about an hour had passed. Huff! Yang Tian put away his saber and shook his head in dissatisfaction. This was because when he was practicing the saber technique, he felt that it was not smooth. He had to stop at some key points. However, what made Yang Tian happy was that when he was practicing the saber technique, he could clearly feel that the energy in his body was circulating in a strange way. When he finished practicing the saber technique, he could clearly feel that the power of the Dragon Ball in his body had been refined by a lot. This was the real saber technique. Chapter 236. Yang Tian's previous saber techniques were all driven by the energy in his body. However, the star-slashing saber technique was driven by the movement of the energy, allowing the energy in his body to circulate according to the movement. Not only that, it could also make the energy in his body more refined. Yang Tian's Dragon Ball's energy was formed by swallowing a lot of other energies. Some of them were impure, and the efficiency of the energy couldn't reach the best state. Now, with the star-slashing saber technique, he could make the Dragon Ball's energy even purer. After practicing this saber technique, Yang Tian didn't practice it a second time. Instead, he used about an hour to experience the process of practice. The blue-armored woman's movements from before, his own movements, the circulation of energy in his body, and so on constantly appeared in Yang Tian's mind. Soon, Yang Tian was surprised to find that when he practiced this saber technique, all the movements were like strange runes. Yang Tian felt a sense of familiarity with these runes. Rumble, while Yang Tian was immersed in the star-slashing saber technique, the stone room suddenly lit up with a rumbling sound. Many glowing dots appeared at the top of the stone room, illuminating the entire stone room. Yang Tian, Chu Yan, and Gu Ying were surprised to find that the stone room wasn't very big. It was only about 30 meters in length, width, and height. The stone room lit up and shook slightly. After a friction sound, the ground suddenly separated, and a square stone platform appeared. The stone platform was filled with blue light. Because it was filled with stellar crystals. Weren't there only combat skills here? How could there be stellar crystals here? Seeing the large amount of stellar crystals, Yang Tian, Chu Yan, and Gu Ying were very surprised. The square stone platform, which was 5 meters in length and width, rose 2 meters in height and stopped. The star crystals kept pouring out and falling down from the stone platform, making a series of crisp and clear sounds. This process continued as Yang Tian, Chu Yan, and Gu Ying watched with their eyes wide open. Little Azure Dragon, who was lying at the side, also saw these stellar crystals, and its eyes lit up. Its dragon mouth opened slightly as saliva flowed out. Soon, more than half of the space in this small stone room was occupied by the stellar crystals. However, the stellar crystals did not stop pouring out. They kept making clattering noises. Yang Tian, Chu Yen, and Gu Ying finally reacted and looked at each other. Their eyes were filled with excitement. What are you waiting for? Use your storage bracelet to store it. The two of them immediately opened their storage bracelets and began collecting. Piles and piles of star crystals were collected into their storage bracelet. Needless to say, with mental power, Yang Ming could collect items much faster when he used the interspatial bracelet. Although Yang Tian's spiritual world was huge, he was not as good as Chu Yen Guiying in terms of spiritual skills. When the stone platform stopped pouring out stellar crystals and the teleportation platform finally appeared, Yang Tian estimated that Chu Yen Guiying had collected at least a third more stellar crystals than him. Yang Tian was not unhappy about this. This was also a form of compensation for Chu Yen Guiying. Although Yang Tian had played a major role in their journey here, Chu Yen Guiying's contribution was not small. Do you remember the star-slashing blade technique just now? When the teleportation platform appeared, Yang Tian knew that it was time to leave. His intuition told him that it would not be long before he would have to part ways with this woman in front of him. Yang Tian wanted to find Qin Fei and pursue a higher realm. As for Chu Yen Guiying, she also had her own path to walk. To be honest, Yang Tian was a little reluctant to part with her. However, he had no choice but to let it go. After traveling together for so long, Chu Yen Guiying and Yang Tian had become close teammates. When they were about to part, Yang Tian's heart skipped a beat. He looked at Chu Yen Guiying's pretty face and asked faintly. Although Chu Yen Guiying cultivated mental power, it did not mean that she could not cultivate combat skills. If she remembered the star-slashing blade technique, it might be useful in the future. Seeing the concern in Yang Tian's eyes, Chu Yen Guiying felt warm in her heart and nodded her head. When the blue-armored woman had been practicing the blade technique, Chu Yen Guiying had used her mental power to remember most of it. Later on, when Yang Tian had been practicing the blade technique, she had completely memorized it. Seeing Chu Yen Guiying nod her head, Yang Tian smiled and said, "That's great. Let's set off now." Squeak, squeak. The little blue dragon cried out excitedly and jumped onto Yang Tian's shoulder. Two people and one dragon stepped onto the stone platform and walked onto the formation plate. After the bright blue light disappeared, Yang Tian and the others appeared on a planet with a very high temperature. There were actually 3 stars hanging in the sky. The temperature on the ground was estimated to be close to 60 degrees. Although the temperature of this planet was very high, it was filled with dense light green plants. Perhaps it was because there was too much sunlight, and the plants did not need too much sunlight to carry out sufficient photosynthesis. The place where Yang Tian and the rest appeared was a forest. The area within 50 meters of the disk array was empty and exposed to the light of the 3 stars. The temperature was naturally high. After Yang Tian and Chu Yen Guiying walked out of the formation plate, they covered their eyes with their hands and looked around. They saw a black pyramid-shaped building in the distance. The tip of the building just happened to be above the forest, so they could see it. Seeing the tip of the black tower, Yang Tian knew that their next target was the pyramid. "Let's go." Yang Tian turned his head and said to Chu Yen Guiying. He took the lead and walked into the forest in front of them. The trees on this planet were taller than those on Earth. Each of them was straight, but the bark was grayish-white. This kind of light color could reflect too much light from the stars and prevent them from absorbing too much heat. As soon as they walked into the forest, Yang Tian and Chu Yen Guiying felt a lot more comfortable without being directly illuminated by the light of the 3 stars. The temperature in the forest was not very high, only about 30 degrees Celsius. Between the tall trees there were also grass and thick vines. Many of the grass had sharp thorns on their leaves. Seeing such a situation, Yang Tian became vigilant. Why? Because plants grew thorns to prevent themselves from being eaten by animals. This also meant that there were also many animals living on this planet. If they were to move forward like this, their speed would be too slow. Yang Tian thought about it and did not intend to let the little blue dragon transform to carry him, Chu Yen Guiying, and himself over. This was because the little blue dragon had consumed the most energy in the battle with the fiery wind beast. Then, this was the only way. Yang Tian turned his head and glanced at Chu Yen Guiying. Then, he grabbed Chu Yen Guiying's waist, jumped on the ground, and jumped into the air with Chu Yen Guiying. He spun in the air, kicked off a tree, and flew quickly with Chu Yen Guiying in the air for a distance. Then, he kicked off another tree again. Just like that, Yang Tian carried Chu Yen Guiying and shuttled through the trees at an extremely fast speed. This was the method that Yang Tian had learned when he first faced the level 8 warrior Du Xiongwen. What made Yang Tian feel strange was that as they moved forward, he did not find any traces of animals in the forest. About 10 minutes later, Yang Tian brought Chu Yen Guiying to the bottom of the Black Pyramid. In front of them was a square entrance to a pitch-black tunnel. Beside the entrance there was also a tablet with words on it. Chu Yen Guiying told Yang Tian that it was one of the 6 guards of the Superstar Divine Temple, the Black Star Beast. Chapter 237. Black Star Beast? Another one of the 6 guards of the Superstar Divinity Temple. Looking at the entrance in front of him, Yang Tian gritted his teeth. It seemed that if he wanted to leave the Death Star field, he would have to kill all the 6 guards. Yang Tian and Chu Yen Guiying looked at each other. Then, with Yang Tian taking the lead, the two carefully walked into the entrance. Chu Yen Guiying raised her staff, and the ruby on the staff lit up again, emitting a bright red light that illuminated the surroundings very clearly. The entire Black Pyramid was about 100 meters tall, and the entrance was square. It was at the very bottom of the pyramid, and it was about 10 meters wide and tall. It was large enough to allow a large truck to drive in. The stone path was wide and straight, and it extended forward. After walking for about 20 meters, there was a stone door. Rumble, when Yang Tian and the others arrived in front of the stone door automatically opened up. What appeared in front of Yang Tian and the others was a blue light. It was the light emitted by the formation plate. Under the blue light, Yang Tian and the others could see a giant python as thick as a bucket coiling around the formation plate. The formation plate was surrounded by its body. When the stone door opened, the giant python had already raised its huge oval head and looked at Yang Tian and the others with its 2 big eyes. Go! Under the blue light, Yang Tian and the others could not see the giant beast clearly. Chu Yen Guiying lightly shouted. The shining ruby on her walking stick left the walking stick and flew forward. It circled in the air once before flying back. During this short process, Yang Tian finally got a clear look at the giant python in front of him. The body of this giant python was similar to the pythons on Earth. Its entire body was covered with fine scales, and the patterns on its body were black and white. The only difference was its head. This giant python's head was oval, and it had 2 big eyes. It looked like a human face. On the sides of the giant python's lips were 2 rows of sharp teeth. Under the red light, they reflected a metallic luster. Huff! Just as Yang Tian and the others were sizing up this giant python, the Black Star Beast suddenly opened its mouth and bit at Yang Tian and the others. The Black Star Beast was very fast. Yang Tian pulled Chu Yen Guiying and quickly retreated. In the blink of an eye, they were outside the Black Pyramid. With a whoosh, the Black Star Beast chased after them and rushed out of the pyramid. Yang Tian brought Chu Yen Guiying and retreated until they were about 100 meters away from the entrance. The Black Star Beast that had rushed out of the Black Pyramid was completely exposed. As soon as this big guy came out of the pyramid, his body seemed to be inflated with air. His body suddenly doubled in size, becoming a giant beast that was nearly 100 meters long and 2 meters in diameter. The enlarged black star beast raised its upper body and coldly looked down at Yang Tian's group. This beast's body completely blocked the entrance of the pyramid. Although this black star beast had become bigger and gave off a sense of oppression, Yang Tian felt that it was not very strong. From the aura it gave off, it was only one level stronger than the level 10 exotic beasts on Earth. Looking at the little blue dragon's performance, it was clear that even the little blue dragon was not interested in fighting it. Go! The black star beast that had rushed out of the pyramid looked at Yang Tian and the others coldly. Suddenly, a drum-like sound came from its mouth. Rustle, rustle, rustle. As soon as this sound was heard, dense rustling sounds could be heard from the surrounding forest. Yang Tian, Chu Yengying, and the others looked around and were surprised to see a large number of small black star beasts that were as thick as an arm. These small black star beasts were densely distributed in the forest and rushed toward Yang Tian and the others. In just a few minutes, they had completely surrounded Yang Tian and the others. Hiss! Seeing this, Yang Tian held his saber with both hands and slashed at the giant black star beast. A red wind blade was shot out from Yang Tian's saber. In an instant, it became dozens of meters long and hit the black star beast's body. Pfff! Pung! The red wind blade sliced through the black star beast's body and crashed into the black pyramid, causing an explosion. Large amounts of rubble rolled down, and a series of bang 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 sounds could be heard. Yang Tian's slash had cut the giant black star beast into several pieces. Its head and upper body were cut open from the middle. Yang Tian put away his saber and said calmly, "This exotic beast is too weak." Chu Yengying smiled and said, "No. You're the one who's gotten stronger. If we had left planet Crimson Flame and come here, this giant beast would not have been killed by you so easily." Yang Tian smiled and nodded. In that slash, he had integrated some of his understanding of the star-slashing saber skill into it. As for the theory behind it, even Yang Tian could not explain it clearly. However, he knew that his saber skill had become stronger. After the giant black star beast was killed, the small black star beasts around it panicked. They began to bite and eat each other. Seeing this, Yang Tian and Chu Yengying knew that a new giant black star beast would be born soon. Yang Tian did not care about this at all. He immediately went around the corpse of the black star beast with Chu Yengying and entered the black pyramid. In the space inside, the disc array was still spinning and emitting blue light. There was an unpleasant stench in the air. Yang Tian, Chu Yengying, and Chu Yengying stepped onto the disc array and went through another teleportation. This time, they were not as lucky as the previous 2 times. They were directly teleported to the 3rd stage. What made Yang Tian and Chu Yengying feel strange was that the strange beasts they faced next were weaker than the previous one. In the 3rd stage, one of the 6 guards, the Iron Fur Beast, was a strange beast that looked like a hedgehog. It was killed by Yang Tian with one slash. In the 4th stage, one of the 6 guards, the Swift Beast, was a very small beast with sharp claws that looked like a mouse. This strange beast was very small, but it was very fast. Chu Yengying's shoulder was scratched by it. It took Yang Tian about half an hour to kill it. In the 5th stage, there was a green giant insect that could spit fire. It was called the Flame Beast, just like the longhorn beetle on Earth. This giant insect's tail could spit out poisonous high-temperature gas. It was burned into a pile of black charcoal by the little blue dragon's dragon flame. In the 6th stage, there was an expert whose consciousness had been erased and modified. It was killed by Yang Tian with one slash. After killing the 6th guard, Yang Tian finally realized that the wind and fire strange beast they faced at the beginning was the strongest of the 6 guards. After passing that stage, the remaining 5 guards could no longer pose a threat to them and stop them from advancing. Looking at the disc array that could be passed smoothly after the last guard of the 6 guards was killed, Yang Tian had a premonition that they would be able to leave the Death Starfield completely after stepping on this disk array. Where do you plan to go after leaving the Death Starfield? Yang Tian asked indifferently while looking at the disk array in front of him. Chu Yengying was silent for a moment before she smiled and said, I already have a place to go. There are records on Ipa planet. I heard that it's a very beautiful starfield. Chu Yengying looked at Yang Tian and asked, What about you? Yang Tian smiled and said, I'm going to the Purple Star Empire. Chapter 238. On the tall ice peak, within the temple in the cold wind, the two subordinates of the immeasurable Star-Lord were already packing up their things. The bald old man sitting cross-legged at the entrance of the temple closed his eyes and said, You don't want to see that little guy? He'll be here soon. The immeasurable Star-Lord stood up and stretched. He smiled and said, I know what I need to know. I've changed my mind. I won't see him for now. After the immeasurable Star-Lord finished speaking, his two subordinates had already packed up. They walked out of the temple and bowed to him. Let's go, bang, the immeasurable Star-Lord looked up at the sky and said. He bent his leg and his body turned into a ray of light and shot into the sky. The powerful bouncing force caused the temple to tremble. Ice shards fell from the temple with a rustling sound. Two deep footprints were left where the immeasurable Star-Lord was standing. The bald old man opened his eyes and looked at the two footprints. He shook his head slightly and smoothed them out. The two subordinates of the immeasurable Star-Lord were shocked when they saw this. They looked at each other and crouched down. They shot into the sky and followed the immeasurable Star-Lord. In the temple, there was a formation plate that had been silent. After the immeasurable Star-Lord left, the formation plate suddenly lit up. A few minutes later, Yang Tian, Chu Yen, and Gu Ying appeared on the formation plate and walked down. Squeak, squeak. As soon as they got down, the little blue dragon cried out a few times in panic. It told Yang Tian that there was a very, very powerful life form outside. Yang Tian's senses were not as good as the little blue dragon's. He did not feel any threat, but he trusted the little blue dragon. He immediately raised his guard. He looked at Chu Yen and Gu Ying and walked out of the temple. When they reached the entrance of the temple, Yang Tian, Chu Yen, and Gu Ying immediately saw the bald old man sitting cross-legged at the entrance of the temple. This old man was wearing very thin clothes. His gray robe swayed in the cold wind. Yang Tian and the others only saw the old man's back at first glance. They didn't know who he was, but they felt from the bottom of their hearts that this was someone they couldn't defeat. Yang Tian, Chu Yen and Gu Ying nervously walked out of the temple gate and came to the side of the bald old man. Facing this powerful person, Yang Tian, Chu Yen and Gu Ying wanted to stay far away from this bald old man, but they had to pass by him. Congratulations! I didn't expect you to come out of the Death Starfield alive. Since you're only the descendants of exiles, you're qualified. I won't make things difficult for you. All of a sudden, the old man opened his eyes and said faintly, Don't worry. The bald old man's voice was very gentle and kind, just like an enlightened monk, causing Yang Tian to feel a sense of closeness from the bottom of his heart. Master, what is this place? Yang Tian scratched his head and asked. Ka. The bald old man did not immediately answer Yang Tian's question. At this moment, a series of ka sounds came from the front. Yang Tian, Chu Yen and Gu Ying noticed that under the huge statue in front of the temple gate, there was a middle-aged man holding a large saber. This man was using the large saber in his hand to continuously scrape the layer of ice on the statue's skirt. This was too strange. Seeing this scene, Yang Tian and Chu Yen and Gu Ying felt that it was very strange. In fact, when they walked out of the temple, they also saw the huge statue in front of the temple. However, they didn't notice that there was actually a middle-aged man under the statue. When Yang Tian, Chu Yen and Gu Ying shifted their gazes to the middle-aged man, the bald old man replied faintly, This is the place to leave the Death Starfield. Can we leave? Yang Tian asked again. The bald old man nodded. Chu Yen and Gu Ying looked inside the temple and saw that there was only one array disk inside. It was the same array disk that they had used to come here. At this time, the array disk had already stopped operating. Excuse me, how can we leave? Chu Yen and Gu Ying frowned and asked. The bald old man said faintly, there are many ways to leave. You can choose for yourselves. For example, you can leave through teleportation, take a spaceship, or leave directly. Chu Yen and Gu Ying said, Excuse me, where is the teleportation array disk? We don't have a spaceship. The bald old man said, This old man has long stopped using spaceships. I have an array disk here. Where do you want to go? As soon as he finished speaking, an array disk suddenly appeared beside the bald old man. I want to go to a star field. According to the ancient records of our planet, it is a very beautiful star field. There is a very big tree. It exists in the universe, and its roots are planted on hundreds of planets. Chu Yen and Gu Ying recalled as they spoke. That place no longer existed a long time ago. When your ancestors were exiled, it was already destroyed. After Chu Yen Gu Ying finished speaking, the bald old man said faintly, You know that place? Chu Yen Gu Ying was very surprised. The bald old man said, Yes, a long time ago, this old man also went there. I still can't forget the situation there. It was a beautiful place. Unfortunately, in the universe, if beautiful things don't have a strong power to protect them, they will be like meteorites in the universe. They can be destroyed at any time. Impossible. After the old man finished speaking, Chu Yen Gu Ying's eyes widened and she shook her head. That is the starfield where our ancestors lived. There are many gods there. How can it be destroyed? If you don't believe me, you can go and take a look. The bald old man said faintly, That starfield is called the Music Boundary Starfield. Now, it has become dark. The stars have been destroyed and there is no light. There are messy fragments of planets everywhere. With your current realm, you can't survive in that starfield. If you want to see it with your own eyes, you can go to the nearest habitable planet. After the bald old man finished speaking, the disk beside him lit up. Chu Yen Gu Ying knew that it was time to leave. Although she believed the old man's words, the starfield where her ancestors lived was the ultimate home in her heart. It was like paradise to the humans on Earth. No matter what, she had to go and take a look. I have to go. I hope I can see you again in the future. Chu Yen Gu Ying looked at Yang Tian and said reluctantly. Yang Tian looked at Chu Yen Gu Ying with reluctance in his heart. For a moment, he didn't know what to say. In the end, he could only say, Goodbye. I hope you are safe and sound. Chu Yen Gu Ying nodded and hugged Yang Tian. Then, she stepped on the teleportation disc and disappeared from the disc. After Chu Yen Gu Ying left, Yang Tian looked at the bald old man and said, I want to go to the Purple Star Empire. Unexpectedly, the bald old man shook his head. No. Why? Yang Tian didn't understand. The bald old man didn't answer. Instead, the middle-aged man carrying a large blade walked over and said to Yang Tian, If you can withstand my blade, you can leave this place. This was clearly a differential treatment. Chu Yen Gu Ying could leave at will, but Yang Tian had to take the test. Chapter 239. The Chinese New Year holiday is over. Today, I went home to do some cleaning. Today, I can only update once. Tomorrow, I will update 4 times. Thank you for supporting this book. Why? Yang Tian still asked. In this world, there was nothing without a reason. The bald old man and the middle-aged man in front of him wanted him to satisfy their requirements. There must be a reason. Facing Yang Tian's question, the bald old man asked Yang Tian, If you go to the Zichen Empire, with your current strength, can you achieve your goal? Yang Tian was stumped. Yes. He just left Earth and didn't know much about the cultivation world in the universe. He hadn't even reached the planetary state. With his current strength, to take Qin Fei away from the Ziqin Empire was too difficult. Of course, Yang Tian didn't know that Qin Fei had become the goddess of the superstar god temple. The bald old man didn't seem to want to tell Yang Tian about this and said, "Since you don't have the confidence, you should give up for now. If I can take one of his attacks, does that mean I can go to the Ziqin Empire?" Yang Tian thought about it and asked the bald old man. As soon as Yang Tian said that, the bald old man laughed. Puff! The middle-aged man stabbed his sword into the ground and sneered at Yang Tian. "What's wrong?" Yang Tian didn't understand their reaction and asked. The middle-aged man said, "If you can take one of my attacks with 1/10 of my strength, I can guarantee that you can come back alive from the Ziqin Empire. If you can take half of my attacks, I can guarantee that as long as you don't mess with others, no one will mess with you. If you can take one of my attacks with my full strength, you can go to most of the starfields in the universe." When the middle-aged man said that, he seemed very confident. So powerful. Yang Tian looked at the middle-aged man in front of him and his eyes were filled with shock. This middle-aged man was too strong. What realm was he at? While Yang Tian was guessing the realm of the middle-aged man in front of him, the bald old man glanced at the little blue dragon lying on Yang Tian's shoulder and said indifferently, "Leave this star beast behind. This old man also wants to train it." Yang Tian wanted to say no immediately after the bald old man said that, but the little blue dragon immediately shouted, its eyes full of anger. Other than Yang Tian, the little blue dragon didn't want to listen to anyone else, let alone train it. It was worth mentioning that the little blue dragon was also very smart. Following by Yang Tian's side, just like Yang Tian, it was able to understand the common language of the universe. Seeing the little blue dragon's unhappy look, the bald old man laughed again and said to the little blue dragon, "Little guy, you can try." Roar! As soon as the bald old man said that, the little blue dragon bounced off Yang Tian's shoulder and flew into the air. In the fierce cold wind, it instantly transformed into a giant dragon. It looked down at the temple below and roared at the bald old man. The bald old man raised his head and looked at the little blue dragon. He slowly raised his right hand, then turned his palm over and pressed down. Boom! There was a loud noise. The little blue dragon's huge body was suddenly slammed down by a powerful and invisible force. Its entire body sank into the thick layer of ice, causing the entire mountain peak to tremble. The trembling of the mountain peak caused the snow behind the temple to loosen. Suddenly, the layer of snow collapsed like a tidal wave, pouring down from the highest point. Avalanche! Seeing such a situation, Yang Tian's eyes widened in shock. His eyes were filled with horror. To the humans on Earth, such a natural phenomenon was no different from the wrath of the heavens. It was something that humans could not fight against. It looked like a large amount of snow was about to pour in and drown the temple. However, in the face of such a situation, the bald old man still had a smile on his face, as if he did not care at all. However, the middle-aged man pulled out his broadsword from the ground. He kicked off the ice with his legs and shot up more than 100 meters into the air. "Ha!" the middle-aged man in the air shouted softly. He held his broadsword with both hands and slashed out. In that instant, Yang Tian noticed a terrifying energy fluctuation from the middle-aged man's broadsword. Broadsword chi. Yang Tian narrowed his eyes slightly. Boom! There was a loud noise. The snow that poured down from the back of the temple was actually split open by the middle-aged man's broadsword. The snow that rushed down was actually split in the middle, passing by both sides of the temple and falling down the mountain. Not only did the middle-aged man's broadsword cut open the snow, but it also cut the mountain peak behind the temple in half. What made Yang Tian even more surprised was that the middle-aged man's broadsword actually had continuous power. When the middle-aged man landed on the ground, the power of his broadsword was still working. Boom, boom, boom! The snow that poured down was like a flood, and it lasted for more than 10 seconds. When the avalanche stopped, the middle-aged man's face was not red, and he was not panting. He looked at Yang Tian and smiled. How is it? How is this broadsword? If you can use this broadsword, the universe is so big that you can come and go as you please. Roar! At this time, the little blue dragon, whose entire body had sunk into the snow, let out a roar. With a boom, it broke free from the ice around its body and climbed out of the ice. The bald old man's palm made the little blue dragon extremely angry. Humans could control their emotions, but the little blue dragon could not, because it was a proud dragon. The little blue dragon, who had climbed onto the ice, looked coldly at the bald old man. Its eyes were filled with the desire to fight, and it looked like it would attack the bald old man at any time. Xiao Long, they don't have any ill intentions. Yang Tian knew that even if he and the little blue dragon joined forces and their strength increased by another realm, they would not be a match for either the bald old man or the middle-aged man. He immediately reminded the little blue dragon. He did not want the little blue dragon to suffer unnecessary harm. Yang Tian's words made the little blue dragon gradually calm down. Why? Yang Tian looked at the bald old man and asked again. This was already the third time Yang Tian asked this question. This time, the bald old man finally answered, because this is your life. This answer made Yang Tian feel a little confused. Yang Tian had never believed in fate. The humans on Earth had a famous saying, man can conquer the heavens. Yang Tian deeply agreed, because he felt that his fate was in his own hands. Seeing the expression on Yang Tian's face, the bald old man had already guessed what he was thinking. He continued, do you know? From the time you left Exiled Star until you reached here, there were a total of 100 checkpoints you had to pass. Of course, for you, with your realm and strength, as well as the help of this little guy, you will pass these 100 checkpoints sooner or later. It's just a matter of time. This old man has saved you a lot of time, so you have to return it to this old man. After the bald old man finished speaking, Yang Tian suddenly understood and nodded with a smile. What did Yang Tian understand? He understood that he had been chosen. Seeing Yang Tian's eyes, the bald old man knew that Yang Tian understood the meaning of his words. He nodded with praise and said to Yang Tian, the person you are looking for is very safe and won't be harmed. When you have the qualifications to leave here, you will also have the qualifications to see her. Yang Tian felt that the old man in front of him was even more mysterious. He was like a legendary monk who had achieved the Tao. Kid, follow me. At this time, the middle-aged man carried his saber and said to Yang Tian. Yang Tian nodded. If he put aside the matter of wanting to see Qin Fei immediately, Yang Tian would also be very happy to follow these two experts to cultivate. He could not ask for more. Chapter 240. Whoosh, boom, on the purple planet, Yang Tian's silhouette flashed. A sharp saber aura swept past where he had been standing. It struck a tree that was as thick as a person's waist. The tree's trunk was blown to pieces by the saber aura, and the flying sawdust covered Yang Tian's back with red dots. At this time, Yang Tian was half naked, and the jeans on his lower body were full of holes from the tree branches, becoming standard beggar's pants. According to the time on Earth, it had been about half a year since he arrived here. After not having a haircut for half a year, Yang Tian already had long black hair that reached his shoulders, and he looked much more elegant than before. When he quickly dodged the sudden sword chi, his figure flashed a few times in the forest and disappeared. Pung! When Yang Tian dodged this sword chi, a tall figure descended from the sky and landed where Yang Tian was standing. This person was the middle-aged man at the top of the temple who was scraping the ice with a large sword. Yang Tian already knew the names of the two people guarding the entrance of the temple. The old man who had been sitting at the entrance of the temple was called Grand Duke Hong, a very strange name. The middle-aged man's name was much more normal, Gao Yuan. Yang Tian only knew the names of Grand Duke Hong and Gao Yuan. As for their realms, the two of them refused to reveal it no matter what. From Yang Tian's point of view, the two of them had at least surpassed the planet grade. Stellar level. Or perhaps super level. That was the realm that Yang Tian could only look at from afar. After Gao Yuan landed, he propped his sword on the ground, looked forward, and laughed. Although he could not see Yang Tian visually, Gao Yuan could sense Yang Tian's specific location. Suddenly, Gao Yuan pulled out his sword, turned around and slashed to the left. This series of actions was very fast and completed in an instant. Boom, boom, boom. The sword chi was released, and rapid explosions sounded. More than 10 purple tree trunks were blown to pieces. Hiding behind a tree, Yang Tian, who was panting, suddenly opened his eyes wide. Before he could react, his back was hit by a powerful and fierce force. The tree he was hiding in exploded into pieces, and his body flew out at the same time. Yang Tian's body crashed into a tree. The strong impact made his chest feel stuffy, and he could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. His internal organs were injured, not because of this impact, but because of Gao Yuan's sword chi. When Yang Tian stood up with his sword, his vision went dark, and a large sword was placed on his shoulder. I lost again. Looking at Gao Yuan's mocking smile, Yang Tian smiled bitterly. Gao Yuan withdrew his saber and said, "This time, you were able to dodge 3 of my saber strikes. Your progress is not small. According to this speed of progress, you will be able to meet the conditions to leave in a while." "Okay." Yang Tian nodded. Yang Tian was very happy to be able to get Gao Yuan's affirmation. "Although you are injured, but the punishment still has to be carried out." Gao Yuan finished and said, "Ah!" Yang Tian screamed helplessly, and finally spread his hands and said, "Okay." When Yang Tian stabbed the red sword in his hand into the ground and turned around, a green vine appeared in Gao Yuan's hand. He did not know what kind of plant this vine was. It was covered with spikes about 5 millimeters long, and the whole vine was emitting a faint green halo. When Gao Yuan held the vine, the green light was even more intense. Gao Yuan used this vine to whip Yang Tian's back. Yang Tian gritted his teeth in pain and could not help but take a deep breath. On Yang Tian's back there was a long, slanted red whip mark, and beads of blood flowed out from the wound. These beads of blood were all black. Gao Yuan whipped again, and 2 intersecting scars appeared on Yang Tian's back. This time, Yang Tian could not help but hug the big tree in front of him in pain. At the same time, Yang Tian took a deep breath again, and his eyes widened a lot. It was really too painful. However, every time he was whipped, a scorching energy would appear on his back and quickly spread throughout his body, making him feel very carefree. The 3rd whip fell, and it hit Yang Tian's back, making Yang Tian scream. When the 4th whip fell on Yang Tian's back, Yang Tian gritted his teeth and could not help but roll his eyes. After hitting Yang Tian 4 times, Gao Yuan looked at Yang Tian's painful appearance and asked with a smile, "Can you still hold on?" Yang Tian nodded with difficulty. The 5th whip fell on Yang Tian's body. In these 5 whips, each whip was stronger than the previous one, and Yang Tian felt more and more pain. At the same time, a burning energy appeared in his body and became stronger and stronger. Half a year ago, Yang Tian could only take 1 hit and directly faint. Now, he could hold on for 5 hits. "Can you still do it?" Gao Yuan asked with a smile. This time, Yang Tian did not answer immediately. After a few minutes, he reacted and gritted his teeth. "I can still hold on." Gao Yuan's answer was to directly whip Yang Tian's back. Yang Tian took a deep breath, rolled his eyes, let go of the big tree he was hugging, and fell to the ground. Then, he closed his eyes and fell asleep. "You can take 6 hits, not bad." Looking at Yang Tian's sleeping appearance with his eyes closed, Gao Yuan smiled and nodded. A green light flashed in his hand, and the green rattan disappeared from his hand. After pulling out the broadsword from the ground, Gao Yuan turned around and slowly walked away. As he walked, he was humming an unknown tune. He seemed to be very happy. In front of Gao Yuan, there was a tall mountain peak. The top of the mountain peak was snow-white, and the temple was located on it. Looking at this tall mountain peak, Gao Yuan did not know how long he had been here. For such a long time, he became very silent with Grandfather Hong, who did not speak often, until Yang Tian arrived. In the process of training Yang Tian, Gao Yuan felt very happy. Gao Yuan was training Yang Tian, while the little blue dragon was being trained by Grandfather Hong. The location was on the other side of the mountain, on a wide grassland. Boom! The little blue dragon, who had transformed into a giant dragon, was kicked to the ground by Grandfather Hong, who suddenly appeared on top of his head. After falling quickly, he smashed a large hole in the flat grassland. On this planet there were also many creatures. As soon as the little blue dragon fell, the ground trembled, startling many strange-looking birds that were hiding in the grass and did not leave for a while. Roar! The little blue dragon got up from the ground, opened his mouth very angrily at Grandfather Hong and howled. Grandfather Hong's figure flashed in the sky and suddenly appeared in front of the little blue dragon. He smiled at the little blue dragon and said, "You are too slow. Let me tell you, faster, faster!" The little blue dragon was speechless. He raised his head and flew into the sky again. Compared to before, the little blue dragon's flying method had some changes. Previously, when it was flying, its body would twist like a snake. It looked like it was swimming, and it looked very elegant and beautiful. But now it was different. After the little blue dragon flew into the air, its body was straight, like a sharp arrow that had been shot out. Chapter 241. I have a promise. Before I go to bed, I must finish the 4 chapters. This is the 2nd chapter. With a whoosh, the little blue dragon's huge body turned into a green shadow in the air and disappeared. This speed was much faster than half a year ago. But, pung! Suddenly, the gray-robed Grandfather Hong appeared on top of the little blue dragon's head again and kicked the little blue dragon down from the sky. He did not know how many times this had happened. The little blue dragon was the same as Yang Tian. They were abused every day. In the beginning, the little blue dragon was not used to it. But now, other than roaring to vent his frustration, the little blue dragon could only do as Grandfather Hong asked. Because if he did not listen, he would only be beaten. This time, the little blue dragon was injured. He lay in the big pit that his body made and did not get up for a long time. Grandfather Hong landed in front of the little blue dragon and a yellow leaf appeared in his hand. Seeing this leaf, the little blue dragon's eyes lit up. Every time he was beaten up and injured, Grandfather Hong would take out a leaf like this to comfort him. Of course, the cunning little blue dragon had pretended to be injured many times in the past 6 months, hoping to eat more of this leaf. But every time, it would end in failure. Grandfather Hong could tell at a glance whether the little blue dragon was injured or not. Not only would the little blue dragon not get the leaf when he pretended to be injured, but he would also be beaten up. After a few times, he had no choice but to be honest. The leaf in Grandfather Hong's hand was not big. It was about the size of an adult's palm. The surface was as smooth as jade, and it was covered with colorful veins. It looked like a piece of jade and was very beautiful. The little blue dragon didn't know how to appreciate things. In its mind, good things were delicious. Of course, this leaf was delicious. When Grandfather Hong took out the leaf and handed it to it, it opened its mouth and sucked the leaf into its mouth. After swallowing this strange leaf, the little blue dragon closed its eyes and rested in the dragon-shaped crater that was created by its rapid fall from the sky. Seeing the little blue dragon swallow the leaf and close its eyes, Grand Duke Hong nodded. He turned around and walked towards the tall mountain peak in front of him, quickly disappearing. A few minutes later, the gray-robed Grand Duke Hong was already sitting cross-legged at the entrance of the divine temple. As for Gao Yuan, he had already returned before Grand Duke Hong returned. He was using the saber in his hand to scrape the skirt of the goddess statue. Gao Yuan did this every day. This habit had long been engraved in his soul. He would feel uncomfortable if he didn't do it for a day. Grand Duke Hong sat cross-legged while Gao Yuan scraped the ice shards. This situation had been going on for many years. In the whistling cold wind, this scene appeared very harmonious. After a long time, Gao Yuan put away his saber and stood there, quietly looking at Grand Duke Hong. "Your heart is not calm." Grand Duke Hong opened his eyes and looked at Gao Yuan as he said indifferently. Gao Yuan nodded. "My side is almost done. What about yours?" Grand Duke Hong said, "Same." Gao Yuan laughed. "That's good. We have waited here for many years. Finally, we can do something for the goddess." Grand Duke Hong didn't laugh. He said indifferently, "No one can say for sure what will happen in the future, not even the prophet." When Yang Tian fell unconscious on the ground, the wound on his back healed at an astonishing speed. On the surface of his body, waves of green light appeared. Yang Tian slept for an entire day. Suddenly, Yang Tian opened his eyes. He let out a long breath and sat up. This kind of situation had happened many times in the past half a year. Every time Yang Tian was injured by Gao Yuan's saber chi, he would be whipped and fall unconscious on the ground. When he woke up, he would find that his strength had increased greatly. His body's strength would also increase significantly. Yang Tian knew that Gao Yuan had used a special method to make him stronger. This kind of strengthening was not only in strength, but also in the body's resistance to attack. Just like the saber chi that Yang Tian had suffered previously. If it was half a year ago, Yang Tian's body would have been cut in half by that powerful saber chi. But now? He had only suffered some internal injuries. His body's resistance to attacks had obviously increased by many times. In this half a year, Yang Tian had never used the power of the Dragon Pearl to strengthen his defense. After the first injury, he had such a plan. However, after being whipped and waking up, he realized the changes in his body and gave up on this plan. If Yang Tian were to use the power of the Dragon Pearl now, he would grow scales on his body and his resistance to attacks would increase by several times, reaching Gao Yuan's requirements in advance. After scanning his surroundings, Yang Tian suddenly stood up and bent down to pick up the red saber that was thrown on the ground. Yang Tian began to practice the star-slashing saber technique. The red saber in his hand turned into sharp red rays of light, cutting through the air and producing a sound of friction. This sound was much softer than half a year ago. The star-slashing saber technique was a very domineering saber technique. It could also affect the mind of the practitioner. Once used, there would be a domineering aura in the heart. Gao Yuan only kept training Yang Tian's body to make it stronger, but he did not teach him any saber technique. In this half a year, Yang Tian practiced the star-slashing saber technique whenever he had time. Now, when he used the star-slashing saber technique, he could already use 70 to 80% of the saber technique's power. In the process of practicing the saber technique, Yang Tian also added the skills of the snow-slashing saber technique to make the saber's cutting ability even stronger. In the process of changing the saber technique, he also displayed his unique imagination and added mental power. The original star-slashing saber technique had been changed a little by Yang Tian. In less than 10 minutes, Yang Tian finished practicing the star-slashing saber technique. He put away the saber and let out a long breath. After casually inserting the saber in his hand into the ground, Yang Tian casually sat on the ground and leaned against a big tree. He took out a large pile of stellar crystals from his storage bracelet. As soon as these stellar crystals appeared, Yang Tian smiled slightly. With a thought, one of the stellar crystals left the ground and floated in the air. At the same time, his mental power world opened wide. Little blue dragons formed by mental power rushed out from it. The images of these little blue dragons were a little fuzzy in Yang Tian's consciousness. As soon as they rushed out, they wrapped around the stellar crystals that floated in the air. At this time, one could see that the size of the stellar crystals was rapidly decreasing. In less than 5 minutes, they disappeared. The energy of a stellar crystal was absorbed by Yang Tian just like that. This skillful absorption process was also the result of Yang Tian's continuous practice. In this half a year, apart from being in a daze occasionally and missing Qin Fei and his friends and family on Earth, he had been practicing non-stop to make himself stronger. As for what kind of realm he was in now, Yang Tian himself was a little unclear. Receiving training from a powerhouse whose realm was far beyond his own and constantly becoming stronger, but not being able to defeat the other party would give one the illusion that they were very small. Yang Tian was like that now. Chapter 242. 2 months later. Are you ready? This time, I'm prepared to use 1/9 of my strength. Gao Yuan looked at the confident Yang Tian and said with a smile. The test was about to begin. If Yang Tian could successfully resist Gao Yuan's saber qi, he would be considered to have passed and could leave at any time. Hearing Gao Yuan's words, Yang Tian opened his eyes wide and said in surprise, "It can't be. In the test a month ago, you used 1/10 of your strength. How can it be 1/9 this time?" Although the strength was only a little bit more, for Yang Tian, it was at least 50% less likely to pass. Ha ha ha! Gao Yuan laughed loudly. Looking at Gao Yuan's laughing appearance, Yang Tian frowned. He thought to himself that if he failed this time, would Gao Yuan use 1/8 of his strength next time? Gao Yuan's arrogant appearance made Yang Tian feel very helpless. Gao Yuan and that Grand Duke Hong were too powerful. They could do whatever they wanted. Yang Tian and the little blue dragon had to do according to their requirement. Of course, Yang Tian and the little blue dragon also knew that the two of them wanted to make him and the little blue dragon stronger. After Gao Yuan finished laughing, the expression on his face suddenly became serious. He said to Yang Tian, "Because you failed last time, you have to pay the price for failure. If you fail again this time, then next time, I will use at least 30% of my strength." If Gao Yuan used 30% of his strength, Yang Tian believed that if he wanted to leave here, he would have to stay here for 8 to 10 years. Yang Tian would definitely not be able to endure such a long time. Although he knew that Qin Fei was fine, not seeing her for such a long time was a very unbearable torture for Yang Tian. If you choose to give up now and continue your usual training, then wait for another half a year. With your current speed of improvement, you will have at least an 80% chance of passing. Gao Yuan suggested again. No. I want to accept this test. Even if I fail, I won't regret it. Yang Tian thought for a moment and gritted his teeth. The corners of Gao Yuan's mouth curled up as he let out a cold snort and said indifferently, acting on impulse, "No." Facing Gao Yuan's disdainful words, Yang Tian shook his head and said, "I've been here for too long. Moreover, even if I stay here, I won't be able to progress as quickly as I have now. I need a wider space to train and grow. As for whether I was being impulsive or not, you'll find out soon enough." When Yang Tian said this, he seemed very confident. Gao Yuan looked at Yang Tian and nodded in his heart. Not to mention anything else, just Yang Tian's mentality was a necessary condition to become a top expert. "All right." Gao Yuan pulled out the large saber beside him and stared at Yang Tian. "I hope your confidence is not an act." Yang Tian nodded. Holding the long red saber in his hand, he turned around and walked away. This was a cleared space in the forest. It was about the size of a football field. When Yang Tian walked about 50 meters, he stopped and turned around. He stared at Gao Yuan with a solemn expression. During his usual training, Yang Tian would constantly run in the forest at high speed. Gao Yuan would constantly chase after him, simulating a scene of a chase. Don't underestimate this kind of training and think that it was fake. In fact, every time Gao Yuan used a force that could almost kill Yang Tian, it was just like the live ammunition training in the human army on Earth. If Yang Tian was careless, he would die. In this kind of near-death training, Yang Tian's growth speed was terrifying even to Gao Yuan. In the past, when it was training, Yang Tian still had room to dodge. Even if he was hit by Gao Yuan's saber aura, he would only be grazed by the saber aura. He would not be directly injured. Or he could hide behind a big tree. Gao Yuan's powerful saber aura passed through many tree trunks, and the destructive power would be significantly reduced. But now it was different. The real test was that Yang Tian did not dodge and took the power of Gao Yuan's saber head-on. A month ago, Yang Tian was confident and accepted the first test. At that time, he was seriously injured. If it were not for the amazing quality of the saber in his hand, called 15, which blocked most of Gao Yuan's power for him, his body would have been cut in half by that saber. Last time, Gao Yuan only used 1/10 of his strength. This time, Gao Yuan wanted to use 1/9 of his strength. Although Yang Tian and Gao Yuan had some feelings of master and disciple after staying here for so long, Yang Tian knew that Gao Yuan would not go easy on him in this kind of test. Of course, Gao Yuan would not deliberately increase his strength to make things difficult for Yang Tian. Gao Yuan's control of his own strength was already very skillful. When he said that he would use a certain amount of his own strength, it would be a certain amount. It would not be a little more, and it would not be a little less. This kind of ability, not to mention Gao Yuan, even the current Yang Tian was able to do it. When he accepted the test last time, although Yang Tian also used the power of the Dragon Pearl, he did not transform. But this time was different. Facing Gao Yuan's strength, if he were to be conservative, even if he did not die, he would probably be lying in bed for 3 to 5 months, wasting a lot of time. After turning around, Yang Tian's mind moved. In the Dragon Pearl space, a large amount of Dragon Pearl power surged out and covered his entire body. At the same time, the aura emitted from Yang Tian's body increased by many times. Feeling the energy fluctuations from Yang Tian's body, Gao Yuan was not surprised at all. Instead, he laughed, thinking that this time he finally made Yang Tian use his trump card. Gao Yuan and Grand Duke Hong had long known that Yang Tian still had some tricks that he had not used. In these 8 months, Yang Tian had absorbed more than half of the star crystals obtained after killing the wind and fire beasts. The power of the Dragon Pearl was extremely abundant. Because Yang Tian was bare-chested, the changes on his body clearly entered Gao Yuan's eyes. On Yang Tian's body, the skin on his neck and below his neck first turned red, then wrinkled and cracked. From it, green shiny things grew out, squeezing the dry skin on the surface of his body. Scale armor. Seeing that Yang Tian's body actually grew the same scale armor as the little blue dragon's body, Gao Yuan finally opened his eyes wide, and could not help but exclaim in surprise. Not bad. Not bad. At the same time, Grand Duke Hong, who had unknowingly appeared behind a big tree, smiled and nodded. Since Grand Duke Hong had appeared here, the little blue dragon was naturally also here. At this moment, the little blue dragon, who had transformed into a mini-dragon, was lying on the branch of a big purple tree, looking at Yang Tian with wide eyes. Its 2 small eyes were filled with a nervous expression. The little blue dragon naturally understood that this was a dangerous test for Yang Tian. The little blue dragon still remembered the last time Yang Tian failed the test and was injured. From Earth until now, the little blue dragon and Yang Tian's relationship was even closer than that of blood brothers. If Yang Tian passed the test this time, then it would be the little blue dragon's turn next. Grand Duke Hong had said to the little blue dragon that it also had to accept the test before it could leave this place. However, Grand Duke Hong's requirements for the little blue dragon were different from Gao Yuan's requirements for Yang Tian. During this time, Grand Duke Hong had been urging the little blue dragon to fly faster. The faster the better. When the time came, the little blue dragon would naturally accept the speed test. In the little blue dragon's nervous expression, Yang Tian completed the transformation in a few minutes. Unlike before, and to Yang Tian's surprise, when he completed the transformation, except for his head and some key parts that were not covered by scales, most of his body grew scales, and above his ears, they actually protruded like two small bumps. This was obviously a sign that dragon horns were about to grow out. But at this moment, Yang Tian did not have time to care about this. After completing the transformation, he used his hands that had turned into dragon claws to hold the hilt of the red long sword tightly. Poof! Suddenly, Gao Yuan jumped up with the sword in his hand. Gao Yuan did not jump high, about 5 or 6 meters. Gao Yuan, who was in the air, held the sword in one hand and casually slashed in the air. The sword qi emitted from the sword broke through the air resistance and rushed toward Yang Tian, who was 50 meters away. The sword qi emitted by Gao Yuan was different from Yang Tian's sword qi. His sword qi was invisible. However, such sword qi emitted powerful energy fluctuations and appeared domineering, giving people a feeling that they could not resist. As for the sword qi that Yang Tian created through his imagination, because it was wrapped in mental power, its momentum was temporarily sealed. It was tangible, but it was more condensed, making people feel less threatened. Of course, this did not mean that Gao Yuan's sword qi was inferior to Yang Tian's. It was just a difference in the way it was used. As the saying went, a strong man could defeat 10 skilled men. Even if Gao Yuan's sword qi could be noticed and valued, it was not something that ordinary powerhouses could resist. When Gao Yuan casually slashed with his sword, Yang Tian also held his sword with both hands. He shouted and slashed at Gao Yuan's sword qi. This test did not require Yang Tian to stand there and wait for Gao Yuan's sword qi to hit him. He could also release his power and destroy the sword qi. Yang Tian slashed down, and a crescent-shaped wind blade rushed out from his red long sword. Boom! In an instant, the two sword qis collided more than 10 meters in front of Yang Tian, producing a loud explosion. Bang! Immediately after, Yang Tian's body made a muffled sound. It was as if he had been hit by a high-speed train, and he was sent flying backward quickly. Unlike last time, Yang Tian's body did not fly up. His legs were still on the ground. His feet, which had turned into dragon claws, dragged out 2 deep and straight grooves on the ground. In the blink of an eye, there was another bang. Yang Tian's back hit a big tree. The tree, which was as thick as a person's waist, was knocked to the side. A large number of tree roots were broken and popped out from the ground. With the big tree blocking, Yang Tian's body finally stopped. He was bounced to the side and fell to the ground. In the last test, after Yang Tian fell, he was so injured that he could not get up. But this time was different. After Yang Tian fell to the ground, he quickly stood up shakily from the ground. He covered his chest with one hand and leaned on his sword with the other. He slowly stood up straight. Yang Tian had finally passed this test. Hee. After standing up from the ground and looking at Gao Yuan standing in the distance, Yang Tian laughed happily. Chapter 243. Today's 3 chapters are combined into 2 chapters. I'll try to update more tomorrow. Gao Yuan carried his broadsword and walked quickly to Yang Tian. He patted Yang Tian's shoulder and said with a smile, "Congratulations, you've finally passed." When Gao Yuan patted Yang Tian's shoulder, his palm made contact with Yang Tian. Electric sparks flashed on his palm, and there was a burst of crackling sounds. After retracting his hand, Gao Yuan looked at his palm and smiled. With his powerful strength, he would naturally not be injured by Yang Tian's dragon orb's power. However, if it was someone with a lower realm than Yang Tian, they would be electrocuted until their entire body went numb the moment they came into contact with Yang Tian. The dragon flame contained within the dragon orb's power would also burn their hands. Patting Yang Tian's shoulder was actually a kind of test. Gao Yuan didn't use light strength. Yang Tian's feet sank a few centimeters deep when Gao Yuan patted his shoulder. Gao Yuan naturally wanted to see if Yang Tian had really passed the test. He wanted to see if Yang Tian was on the verge of collapsing. If Yang Tian fell unconscious, it would be considered a failure. Yang Tian grinned. Seeing Gao Yuan withdraw his hand, he dispersed the Dragon Ball power in his body. The Dragon Ball power catalyzed Yang Tian's body cells. The dragon scales formed by the Dragon Ball quickly fell off, revealing Yang Tian's smooth skin. Senior, what realm am I now? Yang Tian knew that his strength had increased a lot compared to when he came here. He didn't train in the universe, so he naturally didn't know much about his current realm. Yang Tian estimated that if he didn't use the power of the Dragon Orb, he would have reached the Planet Warrior level. Now that he used the power of the Dragon Orb with the help of his mental power, in terms of combat power, he probably surpassed the Planet Warrior level and was close to the Planet Lord level. Facing Yang Tian's question, Gao Yuan just smiled and didn't answer Yang Tian's question. Instead, he said to Yang Tian, "You have to remember that realms aren't that important. What's important is your offensive and defensive capabilities. In the history of the universe, the matter of surpassing one's level to defeat an opponent was a common occurrence. Therefore, in the process of your future battles, it's best to forget your own realm. No matter what opponent you encounter, you have to use your full strength. If you can kill with one strike, don't drag it out. If you encounter a stronger opponent and can't escape, don't cower and be afraid of death. Even if you die, die quickly." This was also the experience that Gao Yuan had gained after countless battles. He had to treat the weak seriously and not underestimate them. If he encountered the strong and had no hope of escaping, he had to give it his all. Yang Tian nodded seriously. Creak, creak. At this moment, the little blue dragon's cry could be heard from the nearby forest. Then, a green light flashed. Yang Tian smiled and turned his head to look at his right shoulder. The little blue dragon was already lying on his shoulder. It had been many days since he saw the little blue dragon. Yang Tian missed it very much. He raised his hand and scratched the little blue dragon's back. Speaking of which, the time that Yang Tian and the little blue dragon spent together added together was more than Qin Fei. Yang Tian passed the test. Next, it was the little blue dragon's turn. When the little blue dragon appeared, Grandfather Hong also walked out and nodded and smiled at Yang Tian. Then, he quickly walked in front of Yang Tian and looked at the little blue dragon. "Little guy, now it's your turn. Xiaolong, do your best." Yang Tian patted the little blue dragon's back and encouraged it. Squeak, squeak. The little blue dragon nodded its head confidently. In these 8 months, the little blue dragon's growth rate was also astonishing. Yang Tian could clearly feel that the little blue dragon's aura was much stronger than before. It must be known that during this period of time, the little blue dragon had swallowed a lot of the yellow leaves that Grandfather Hong had taken out. The energy contained in these strange leaves was even purer than star crystals and was easier to absorb. The little blue dragon, who was about to be tested, flew into the air and quickly transformed into a giant dragon. Until now, Yang Tian still did not understand the principle of the little blue dragon's transformation. Its body was like a balloon that could be big or small. It was not like him, who needed to shed a part of his body's cells every time he transformed. Wu, the little blue dragon, who had transformed into a giant dragon, suddenly raised its head. With a swing of its tail, it instantly turned into a green light and disappeared from Yang Tian's sight. In the eyes of ordinary people, the little blue dragon's speed was almost as fast as teleportation. However, Yang Tian, who had extremely fast reflexes, keenly captured the little blue dragon's figure. This huge guy did not fly straight into the sky. Instead, it turned around in the air and instantly drilled into the forest. The purple trees on this planet were very tall. The distance between the trees was at least more than 10 meters. It was just enough to allow the little blue dragon to pass through. If it was a human moving in such a forest, they would not be affected much. However, the little blue dragon's body was too big. It was impossible for it to move in a straight line in the forest. Such a forest environment would naturally affect the little blue dragon's speed. Seeing the difficulty of this test, Yang Tian unconsciously clenched his fists. He was worried about the little blue dragon. This was also Grandfather Hong's test requirement. Just like Gao Yuan's test for Yang Tian, Grandfather Hong also increased the difficulty of the test for the little blue dragon. Yang Tian guessed that when Grandfather Hong brought the little blue dragon here, he told the little blue dragon the content of the test. If Yang Tian did not pass the test, the little blue dragon would naturally not accept this test. When the figure of the little azure dragon disappeared, Grand Duke Hong also suddenly disappeared from where he was. Yang Tian and Gao Yuan turned their heads at the same time and looked in the direction of the little blue dragon's movement in the forest. Gao Yuan naturally noticed the turbulent airflow when the little blue dragon moved, as well as the unconcealable aura on the little blue dragon's body. As for Yang Tian, it was purely a feeling. There was a mysterious connection between him and the little blue dragon because of the blood contract. No matter how far away he was from the little blue dragon, he could sense the other party's specific location. Pring! Suddenly, there was a loud noise. In Yang Tian's eyes, the little blue dragon's body broke dozens of huge purple trees at high speed and flew toward him. Boom! Seeing this situation, Yang Tian quickly dodged. The little blue dragon's huge body smashed into the open space in the forest, making a loud noise. Its body slid close to the ground to the edge of the forest. After breaking many trees, it stopped. After the little blue dragon landed, it was a little confused. After getting up from the ground, it shook its huge dragon head and was stunned for a moment before waking up. Xiaolong failed? Seeing this situation, Yang Tian was very worried. At this moment, Grandfather Hong appeared and looked at the little blue dragon with a smile on his face. He said, "I didn't expect you, little guy, to have such hidden skills. This time you pass." Hearing Grandfather Hong's words, Yang Tian felt as if a rock had been lifted from his heart. He loosened his tightly clenched fist. This time, he could finally leave this place. The next day, in the temple. At this time, Yang Tian had changed into a new set of clothes. His long hair was neatly combed and clean. He looked much more energetic than yesterday. Grandfather Hong had already taken out the disc array and said to Yang Tian, "When you leave here this time, there will be a little trouble. If you work hard, your life will not be in danger." When Grandfather Hong said this, Yang Tian could not help but open his eyes wide. He looked at Grandfather Hong with some doubt. He thought to himself, could it be that after humans reached a certain level of strength, they could foresee the future? Seeing the expression on Yang Tian's face, Grandfather Hong smiled and said, "Those who can foresee the future are those fellows who call themselves prophets. I'm not. I'm stronger than you, so my senses are naturally sharp. You should be able to understand this." When Grandfather Hong said this, Yang Tian thought of the sixth sense that humans had. Before humans were about to encounter a disaster, many people would have a feeling in their hearts. Some people would sense it and avoid the disaster. Even ordinary humans had this kind of innate ability, let alone an expert like Grand Duke Hong. Before you leave, do you have any questions to ask? Grandfather Hong looked at Yang Tian and asked with a smile. At this time, Gao Yuan was leaning on his large saber and leaning against the temple door. His head was slightly lowered, and no emotions could be seen on his face. During this half a year of getting along, Yang Tian was somewhat reluctant to part with the two. In his heart, he already regarded the two as masters. Yang Tian thought for a while and opened his mouth to ask, "I want to know where Xiaofei is now." When Grandfather Hong heard Yang Tian's question, he said coolly, "I know where she is. Furthermore, before you came here, her biological father even came. However, I won't tell you. If you want to know her whereabouts, go find it yourself." Xiaofei's biological father? Regarding this news, Yang Tian was somewhat shocked. Grandfather Hong glanced at the dazed Yang Tian, waved his gray long sleeves, and said coolly, "Now, you can leave." Yang Tian did not leave immediately. Instead, he glanced at Grandfather Hong and Gao Yuan, scratched his head and said, "Seniors, do you have anything you need me to do?" He. When Yang Tian asked this question, Grandfather Hong laughed. At this time, Gao Yuan raised his head and shrugged his shoulders. He sighed helplessly and looked at Grandfather Hong, saying, "I lost again." After saying this, Gao Yuan turned his head to look at Yang Tian and said, "Although I lost, I am very happy. I wish you good luck." After Gao Yuan finished speaking, he looked deeply at Yang Tian. Then, he carried his large saber and turned around, leaving the temple. After Gao Yuan left, a blue bead appeared in Grandfather Hong's hand. He handed the bead to Yang Tian and said, "If one day you go to a place and see that you need to use this bead, use it. This will be considered as helping the two of us." Yang Tian received it with both hands and looked at it carefully. He discovered that there were countless red threads flowing inside the bead. "Okay." After Yang Tian put the finger-sized bead into his storage space, he nodded at Grandfather Hong. "It's fine now. You can really leave." Grandfather Hong also looked deeply at Yang Tian. After saying this, he turned around and walked outside. "Phew!" Yang Tian let out a long breath. He turned his head and said to the little blue dragon on his shoulder, "Xiao Long, we can finally leave." Squeak! The little blue dragon, who yearned for freedom, let out two excited cries. At this time, Yang Tian did not expect that a person named Ao Chu had been waiting for him. This was also the first powerful enemy that Yang Tian had encountered after leaving the Death Starfield. Chapter 244. When the blue light in front of him disappeared, Yang Tian was already in a small town. 2 rows of short stone buildings appeared in front of him. The formation platform under Yang Tian's feet was about 3 meters tall, located at the crossroads of the small town. Standing at Yang Tian's current position, he could see the situation on the streets on all sides clearly. The streets, which were about 10 meters wide and paved with bluestone, could be described as weaving people. From Yang Tian's perspective, most of these people's appearances were relatively normal, but there were a few humans who looked a little different from humans. For example, there were bald humans with green skin all over their bodies. There were also sexy beauties with pointy ears and wearing tight clothes. There were also strong giants who were 5 meters tall and had red hair all over their bodies. Other than humans, there were of course all kinds of exotic beasts. Most of the exotic beasts were being ridden by humans as transportation tools. There were also some small exotic beasts, like the little blue dragon, lying on the shoulders of humans. Seeing such a scene, Yang Tian felt the aura of the universe rushing towards him. The little blue dragon lying on Yang Tian's shoulder also opened its eyes wide, its eyes full of curiosity. These people in front of him, no matter who they were all equipped with weapons, and the aura they were emitting was very powerful. "Move aside, don't block the way." Yang Tian looked at the situation in front of him and was stunned for a moment. Just as he stepped out of the formation plate, a middle-aged man's voice rang out behind him. At this moment, Yang Tian narrowed his eyes slightly and moved to the right. The burly man behind Yang Tian wanted to push Yang Tian, but Yang Tian dodged and his hand missed. He couldn't help but stagger and almost fell off the platform. Yang Tian only turned his head and glanced at this person, then walked down the several stone steps down the teleportation platform. The aura this burly man emitted wasn't strong, and Yang Tian didn't want to cause trouble. However, you're courting death. As soon as Yang Tian's feet touched the stone slabs of the street, the big man's shout came from behind him. At the same time, a strong wind blew behind him. The burly man behind Yang Tian was very muscular. He wore black, shiny, tight clothes and held a bone-spike-shaped weapon similar to the ones used by the Jade Sunrays. He seemed to have a very fiery temper and would get angry over even the slightest thing. As soon as Yang Tian stepped off the teleportation platform, he quickly stabbed his bone-spike-shaped weapon at Yang Tian's back. In that instant, Yang Tian's figure moved and he quickly dodged to the side, using the saber in his hand to hit the burly man's chest. Boom! The burly man gave a muffled moan as his body was sent flying into the air by Yang Tian, smashing into the crowd on the other side of the formation board. As he had just arrived here, Yang Tian didn't understand the situation and didn't want to kill anyone. Otherwise, he would have been able to cut the burly man in half with his saber. Most of the people here were cultivators in the universe. When they saw the burly man's body falling toward them, they immediately dodged to the side and opened up an empty space. Pung! The burly man's body landed heavily on the street and slid a few meters before coming to a stop. The bluestone slabs on the street were very hard. Even after being smashed by the burly man's strong body, there wasn't a single crack. After staying on the purple planet for more than half a year, Yang Tian's strength had increased by a lot. He could easily send a burly man weighing more than 200 kilograms flying with a casual blow. The burly man weighed more than 200 kilograms. It wasn't that he was too fat, but that the planet's gravity was stronger than Earth's. Yang Tian's blow didn't seriously injure the burly man. He immediately got up from the ground, then gave Yang Tian a cold look, turned around and hid in the crowd. Seeing this situation, Yang Tian laughed. Sure enough, no matter where you went, you wouldn't be bullied if you had great strength. If Yang Tian wasn't as strong as the burly man, he would probably have become a corpse by now. When the burly man attacked Yang Tian just now, he had a strong murderous aura. It was obvious that he wanted to kill him. The people here didn't seem to be surprised by such things. After glancing at Yang Tian a few times, they went about their own business. Yang Tian walked down the street aimlessly, constantly glancing at the shops on both sides of the street. During this process, Yang Tian clearly felt that someone was watching him from behind. Yang Tian didn't care. He thought that the burly man was humiliated just now and was unwilling to accept it. If he came to provoke him again, Yang Tian curled the corner of his mouth, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Walking in this complicated world, it was impossible to just endure and give in. Most of the shops on both sides of the street were very small, and the things inside were piled up messily. There were shops selling weapons, shops selling all kinds of stones, and shops selling food, clothes, daily necessities, and so on. Sure enough, no matter where you go, you can't lack clothes, food, shelter, and transportation. As he walked, Yang Tian suddenly saw a relatively clean shop. There was a transparent display cabinet in the shop, and there were many models of spaceships inside. Yang Tian immediately became interested in such a shop. If this place really sold spaceships, that would be great. Yang Tian, who came from Earth, was naturally interested in high-tech things. Since he was young, he also had a dream of owning a spaceship and traveling the universe. Yang Tian didn't care about the people secretly watching him and immediately walked toward the shop. The person guarding the counter was a relatively beautiful girl. When she saw Yang Tian coming, she immediately stood up and smiled to the sky. "Welcome, honorable customer." Yang Tian nodded to the girl, pointed to the spaceship models in the transparent counter and asked, "Do you sell spaceships here?" "Yes." The girl replied, "These are all models of real objects. We have a very detailed introduction here. You can choose according to your needs." After the girl finished speaking, Yang Tian glanced at the models on the counter and said, "Take them out for me to see." "Okay." The girl agreed and took out all the models on the counter. There were a total of 36 models, each about the size of a palm. Yang Tian didn't look at the price. Even if he didn't have the money and couldn't afford it, he could look at it first and estimate the price. These models were very exquisitely made. At the bottom of the spaceship models, there were many small words engraved. These words should be the parameters of the spaceship. Unfortunately, Yang Tian couldn't read these words yet, so he could only ignore them. Among the 36 models, most of them were similar to an oblate triangular spaceship. The only difference was that there were some subtle decorations on them. There were also some spaceships. Some were circular, some were like flat tops, similar to UFOs. Some of the remaining ones looked like models of high-speed fighter jets made by humans. After looking at all the models, Yang Tian pointed to a black, flat duck-beak-shaped, oblate triangular spaceship model and said, "This spaceship, how much is it worth?" The girl said, "Do you like this spaceship? You only need 10,000 star crystals to get it." Star crystals? Is this the universal currency of the universe? Yang Tian asked curiously. Yang Tian's question exposed the fact that he came from a small place. In the eyes of the merchants, people like this were poor aboriginals. The moment Yang Tian's voice fell, the girl frowned but still answered, "This planet is a free planet. Of course, it only accepts star crystals. In the huge empires, they all have their own currencies." The girl's attitude was obviously not as enthusiastic as before. Seeing Yang Tian nod, she started to pack up the spaceship models. Yang Tian naturally understood the reason for the girl's change in attitude. It wasn't that she was snobbish, but the reality was like this. Yang Tian thought for a moment. With a thought, he took out a piece of star crystal from his storage bracelet and asked the girl, "Is this the star crystal?" When the girl saw the star crystal in Yang Tian's hand, her eyes lit up. She immediately nodded and said, "Yes, this is a standard star crystal. 10,000 of these star crystals can be exchanged for the spaceship you wanted." Yang Tian said helplessly, "Unfortunately, I don't have that many star crystals." After that, Yang Tian put the star crystal in his hand on the transparent counter and turned to leave. "Please wait." As soon as Yang Tian walked out of the shop, the girl ran over with the star crystal left by Yang Tian and blocked Yang Tian's way. Looking at the girl in front of him, Yang Tian frowned and asked, "What's the matter?" Seeing that Yang Tian was a little unhappy, the girl smiled and said, "If I'm not wrong, you just came from a remote planet, right?" Yang Tian nodded. The girl continued, "Then you must be very unfamiliar with the surrounding environment. For example, you know nothing about food, places to live, how to earn money, cultivation, and so on. If you are willing to give me the star crystal, I can help you. At least on this planet, I can help you." Tour guide? After the girl finished speaking, Yang Tian couldn't help but ask. The girl didn't understand what Yang Tian meant by tour guide. She stared at Yang Tian with wide eyes. Yang Tian could only explain, "Tour guide is what you are going to do for me. Where I come from, people like you are called tour guides." The girl nodded. "Yes, I want to be your tour guide." He had just arrived here and was unfamiliar with everything. Yang Tian did need this girl's help. He smiled. "All right then. But what about your shop?" The girl smiled. "Business is not good. It's okay to close it for a while. Take this star crystal in my hand as the price you've paid me. Every 5 days you need to pay another star crystal. It's not expensive, right?" Yang Tian nodded. "It's not expensive indeed." The girl was very happy to see Yang Tian being so generous. She said, "All right, I'll bring you to eat first. After that, I'll find you a place to stay. After that, I'll tell you how a cultivator like you can earn enough star crystals to buy a spaceship. This girl was very smart. She planned to let Yang Tian earn enough star crystals to buy her spaceship. Yang Tian knew that this girl's shop was most likely an intermediary agency. He didn't care about this. If he could get a lot of star crystals, he couldn't ask for more. Chapter 245. After the girl closed her shop, she led Yang Tian along the street, saying that she wanted to find a place to eat. Yang Tian looked at the lively girl beside him and asked with a smile, "What's your name?" "My name is Seven Light Rain, what about you?" The girl replied. After saying her name, she looked at Yang Tian and asked, "What about you?" Seven Light Rain, what a strange name, Yang Tian thought. He immediately replied, "My name is Yang Tian." Cheep cheep. At this time, the little blue dragon cried out twice. The little blue dragon's cry didn't have any meaning, as if it was just announcing its existence. Yang Tian smiled and said to Seven Light Rain, "It's called Xiao Long." Seven Light Rain had already seen the little blue dragon on Yang Tian's shoulder. Perhaps because she had seen such things too many times, she wasn't very curious about it. She nodded at the little blue dragon and said, "Xiao Long, hello, that's a nice name." "Cheep cheep," the little blue dragon replied, then turned its head and looked at the passers-by around it. Many of the humans here looked different from normal humans, which made the little blue dragon very curious. At this time, Yang Tian said, "Seven Light Rain, if I want to leave this planet, can I leave through teleportation?" Seven Light Rain smiled and said, "Of course you can. However, if you have 10,000 star crystals and aren't in a hurry, it's better to buy a spaceship and leave." "Why?" Yang Tian asked. Seven Light Rain said, "Because on this planet, each teleportation fee is 10,000 star crystals." "So expensive?" Yang Tian was surprised. From Yang Tian's point of view, the price was ridiculously high. One must know that 10,000 star crystals were enough to purchase a spaceship. Upon seeing Yang Tian's surprised expression, Seven Light Rain kicked a piece of gravel on the ground to the roadside and said, "Because there are only 3 teleportation array discs on this planet that can leave this place, and all 3 of them are in the hands of the Star Quarry's owner. They have the final say on the price. Isn't this a monopoly? Why is the teleportation price so high?" Yang Tian felt a little strange and asked again. With such a high teleportation price, very few people would be able to afford it, right? While they were talking, Seven Light Rain had already brought Yang Tian to the entrance of a 3-story stone building. She said to Yang Tian, "Let's go up first and order some food. I'll tell you while we eat." Yang Tian nodded. This small 3-story building was a restaurant. After entering, Yang Tian found that it was full of people. There were about 100 people inside, and it seemed very crowded. The table was long, and in front of everyone was a red plate of food. There was meat, dried fruits, fresh fruits, and other food. Although there were many people, it wasn't noisy. Many people didn't speak while eating. In fact, it was because most of the people next to them didn't know each other. Most of these people ate with their hands, and some used knives and forks. Yang Tian didn't see any chopsticks. Seven Light Rain brought Yang Tian through the narrow gap between the diners and walked up the stone steps to the 3rd floor. After reaching the 3rd floor, Yang Tian found out that this was the same as a restaurant opened by humans. The 1st floor was the lobby, and the 2nd and 3rd floors were private rooms. Of course, the price of dining here would be much more expensive than below. After reaching the 3rd floor, Seven Light Rain brought Yang Tian into a small private room with the door open. There was a long table and 2 benches in the private room. After the 2 sat down, Seven Light Rain pressed a button under the table. In less than a minute, a young woman walked in with a large plate of food. "I haven't ordered yet. Why are the dishes already served?" Yang Tian was puzzled. The young woman placed the plate on the table. The plate was also filled with red food. Yang Tian took a closer look. There were 2 plates of food that looked like dried meat. There were unknown seasonings sprinkled on them, and there was a refreshing fragrance. There were also 2 plates of food. They were worms that looked like shrimps. In addition to the 4 plates of food, there were also 2 large cups of green drinks that looked like fruit juice. The young woman divided the food into 2 portions and placed them in front of Yang Tian and 7 Light Rain. Then, she immediately left and closed the door of the private room. 7 Light Rain rubbed her hands and picked up a worm that was as thick as a finger. It looked like a roasted worm and put it into her mouth. Soon, a sha-sha sound came from her mouth. Chewing the worm in her mouth, 7 Light Rain had an intoxicated expression. Is this thing delicious? Out of curiosity, Yang Tian picked up one from his plate and put it into his mouth. First, there was a burnt smell. It seemed like this worm was indeed roasted. After chewing, the skin broke and the meat was tender. It tasted very delicate and fragrant. Yang Tian chewed the worm and swallowed it into his stomach in a few bites. Xiaolong, give me one. Yang Tian didn't forget the little blue dragon. He picked up a worm and passed it to the little blue dragon on his shoulder. The little blue dragon opened its mouth and bit the worm, eating it. Squeak, squeak. The little blue dragon finished eating the worm quickly and let out an excited cry. It told Yang Tian that it liked to eat this kind of food. After speaking to Yang Tian, the little blue dragon jumped onto the table and picked up a roasted worm with its 2 claws and ate it. The roasted worm was delicious. The 2 plates of roasted meat were also not bad. They were crispy and delicious. When Yang Tian first saw the food, he thought that it wouldn't taste good. He didn't expect it to taste so good. 7 Light Rain ate very quickly and was soon full. After drinking a large cup of green drink, she wiped her mouth and rubbed her belly with a satisfied expression. Now, you should answer my question, right? Yang Tian looked at 7 Light Rain and said with a smile. 7 Light Rain nodded. Just now, Yang Tian asked 7 Light Rain why the teleportation fee to leave this planet was so expensive. 7 Light Rain didn't forget Yang Tian's question and said, because the less people leave this planet, the more the star mine's owner will earn. Do you know why? Yang Tian shook his head. 7 Light Rain said, although this planet's resources are poor, there is a very strange passage that leads to an unknown small world. There are a lot of star crystals there. Of course, that place is also very dangerous. The star mine's owner needs a lot of people to go to that small world and bring back a lot of star crystals from there. 7 Light Rain didn't say anything, but Yang Tian knew that the passage to that small world must be in the hands of the star mine's owner. Yang Tian couldn't help but smile. He looked at 7 Light Rain and said, you thought of a place where I can earn a lot of star crystals, don't tell me it's there? 7 Light Rain nodded and said, of course. Otherwise, who can get a lot of star crystals in such a short time? Although a lot of people died, there were also a lot of people who gained a lot. Also, without the guarantee of the natives of this planet, outsiders can't get permission to enter that place. You are very lucky. I am a native of this planet and can vouch for you. But after you get the star crystals, you have to give me 5%. This is a kind of tacit agreement. Yang Tian didn't refuse or agree. Instead, he asked, although such a place is dangerous, you can get a lot of star crystals. Don't some powerhouses have designs on it? 7 Light Rain smiled and said, the star mine's owner is a Stargrade powerhouse. There are very few people who can defeat him. Even if someone stronger than him comes here, without his permission, they can't enter that small world. Yang Tian nodded and asked, what is this planet called? Lugu Planet. 7 Light Rain answered. While Yang Tian and 7 Light Rain were eating, Ao Chu, who had been looking for Yang Tian for a long time, arrived at Lugu Planet. His spaceship directly landed in a luxurious manner in the depths of Lugu Planet's jungle. This manor is also the residence of the star mine's owner. After Ao Chu left the Superstar Divine Temple, He has been looking for Yang Tian's whereabouts. Although it has been such a long time, he didn't give up. Instead, as time passed, his hatred for Qin Fei became stronger and stronger. If he wanted to take revenge on Qin Fei, he would have to kill Yang Tian. In the past year, Ao Chu went to the Death Starfield alone and checked many places. Finally, he found traces of Yang Tian. Ao Chu didn't dare to go to that purple planet. He didn't even dare to approach it because he knew that there were two very terrifying people on that planet. In the Superstar Divine Temple, he was punished by the High Priest Hong Yujio. His realm dropped from Stargrade Warrior to Planet-Grade Starlord. Hong Yujio was already merciful. If he encountered Hong Yujio and Gao Yuan on the Purple Planet, only death would await him. After waiting for a long time, Ao Chu finally saw Yang Tian leave that planet. Chapter 246. When Ao Chu exited the spaceship and walked down from the parking platform in the manor, a middle-aged man walked over under the escort of more than 10 guards in black armor. He let out a happy laugh. The middle-aged man had short hair, a square face, thick eyebrows, and big eyes. He had a strong body and was dressed in black casual clothes. When he saw Ao Chu, he was very enthusiastic and even took the initiative to hug Ao Chu. "Welcome to my planet, Lord Ao Chu." This middle-aged man was the star mine owner who actually controlled this planet. In the outside world, people called him the Star Mine Master because he had a mysterious small world in his hand. And in that small world, there were many star crystals. As for his real name, very few people remembered it. Ao Chu was clearly not used to the Star Mine owner's enthusiasm. If it had been before his level had dropped, he would have accepted the Star Mine owner's enthusiasm calmly because it was natural. But now, Ao Chu's cultivation level was much lower than the Star Mine owner's. Of course, this was not the case from the Star Mine owner's point of view. No matter what, Ao Chu had once been a Stargrade powerhouse. Even if his cultivation level had dropped to the Planet-Grade Starlord level, as long as he had enough energy, he would be able to recover his original cultivation level sooner or later. Ao Chu smiled and separated from the Star Mine owner. "Mine owner, please don't call me Master anymore. I'm only a Planet-Grade Starlord now." After Ao Chu said that, the Star Mine owner smiled. "You don't have to worry. With enough energy, you will recover to your original cultivation level very soon." Although the universe was huge, news spread very quickly, especially among powerhouses. The news of Ao Chu blaspheming the goddess in the Superstar Divine Temple and being punished by Hong Yujio had long spread. Some powerhouses who were dissatisfied with the Superstar Divine Temple actually admired Ao Chu. The Star Mine owner was such a person because he controlled a mysterious small world that could produce a lot of star crystals. The Superstar Divine Temple had been coveting this small world for a long time and had tried all means but had not been able to obtain it. Naturally, the Star Mine owner was very dissatisfied with the Superstar Divine Temple because of this. Perhaps this was the reason why Ao Chu was personally received by the Star Mine's owner. "Master Ao Chu, let's talk inside. I've already prepared a sumptuous meal for you, as well as your favorite things." After the Star Mine had finished speaking, he led Ao Chu into his manor. After passing through the gates of a castle, there was a banquet hall. Ao Chu looked up and her eyes widened. Her eyes were filled with surprise. Because the banquet hall was filled with beauties. He was arrogant and lecherous. Otherwise, when he saw the beautiful Qin Fei on the star observation platform of the Superstar Divine Hall, he would not have suddenly become hot-headed and proposed such a thing. Ha ha ha! Seeing the expression on Ao Chu's face, the Star Quarry's owner narrowed his eyes and laughed. The Star Mine's owner's laughter jolted Ao Chu back to his senses. He smiled somewhat awkwardly. "Please have a seat inside." After saying that, The Star Mine's owner pulled Ao Chu's arm, and the two of them entered the banquet hall. They sat down before a long, blue crystal table that was about 5 meters in length. The long, blue crystal table was already filled with sumptuous food. Just looking at it would whet one's appetite. As the two of them sat down, music rang out in the hall. The beautiful women began to dance sensually. Ao Chu watched until he forgot to eat. The beauties of the Star Mine's owner were all one in a million. In Ao Chu's home, there were naturally many such beauties. However, to Ao Chu, those women were no longer fresh, and could not be compared to the beauties before him. Although Ao Chu was engrossed in the graceful dance of these beauties, he did not forget the business he had come here for. When the music ended and the beauties stopped dancing, Ao Chu turned his head and said to the Star Mine's owner, "Mine master, I came here this time because I need your help with something." Seeing that Ao Chu had finally spoken, the Star Mine's owner smiled and said, "Please don't hesitate to speak. If I can do it, I will do my best to help you." The Star Mine's owner spoke very straightforwardly. This made Ao Chu very happy. He smiled and said, "I am on Legu planet looking for a person. That person is called Yang Tian. He came from an exile planet. My subordinates have confirmed that Yang Tian has arrived on this planet." Yang Tian? This name sounds familiar. After Ao Chu finished speaking, the Star Mine's owner stroked his chin and said. Ao Chu smiled and said, "Yang Tian is the husband of the current Super Star Divine Temple Goddess. This happened in the Blue Star Empire." With Ao Chu's reminder, the Star Mine's owner finally remembered. He also understood why Ao Chu had come here. After thinking for a moment, the Star Mine's owner nodded and said, "No problem. As long as Yang Tian comes to this planet, I will help you find him." "Many thanks, mine master." After the Star Mine's owner finished speaking, Ao Chu happily stood up and bowed to the Star Mine's owner. The Star Mine's owner waved his hand and said with a smile, "This is just a small matter. Come, let's continue eating." The Star Mine's owner has a great influence on Legu Planet. He is actually the ruler of this planet. Everyone who comes to this planet is monitored. When Yang Tian and 7 Light Rain walked out of the restaurant, Yang Tian once again noticed that someone was watching him. When he felt the other party's gaze, he turned his head and saw a young man in black clothes. When this person saw Yang Tian looking at him, he didn't avoid it. Instead, he smiled and nodded at Yang Tian. Yang Tian also smiled and turned his head. "What's wrong?" 7 Light Rain, who noticed Yang Tian's strange behavior, asked curiously. Yang Tian smiled and said, "It's nothing. I just noticed that someone is following me. It's that black-clothed man." After saying that, Yang Tian turned his head and looked at the place where the black-clothed young man appeared. He found that the other party had already left. At this time, 7 Light Rain smiled and said, "This is normal. In fact, not many people come to Legu Planet. Everyone who comes here is monitored for a period of time." Yang Tian said, "Is he a subordinate of the Star Mine's owner?" 7 Light Rain nodded and then whispered to Yang Tian, "Mine master is very vigilant because he controls a huge amount of wealth." After saying this, 7 Light Rain glanced around and said to Yang Tian, "Now, I will take you to find a place to stay. Tomorrow I will take you to register and vouch for you. Then you can enter the Star Mine's small world and obtain a large amount of star crystals." "Okay." Yang Tian smiled and nodded. Although Legu Planet doesn't look rich, its expenses are very high. The meal just now cost Yang Tian a piece of star crystal. If compared to the price of a spaceship with 10,000 star crystals, the meal just now was considered a high-end expense. Chapter 247. 7 Light Rain brought Yang Tian to an inn. This inn was also a 3-story building made of stone. Yang Tian didn't understand these buildings. On this planet, even spaceships could be bought, so why were the buildings so simple and crude? Yang Tian thought for a moment. He reckoned that this was deliberately done by the ruler of this planet. Or perhaps the majority of cultivators in the universe were somewhat resistant to science and technology. On Earth, there were people who were anti-scientific and believed that human development had fallen into a misconception. However, in Yang Tian's opinion, such people were simply mentally ill. This was because scientific progress was inevitable in the development of intelligent life. Scientific progress allowed humans to have a clearer understanding of the world they lived in, to resist natural disasters, and to see a wider world. Food was expensive, and so was accommodation. If one didn't want to stay in a shared room and squeeze in with others, a single room for a day would cost 1 star crystal. Moreover, one had to pay the bill first before moving in. Yang Tian thought for a moment and only paid 5-star crystals in one go. Why are you only paying for 5 days? 7 Light Rain asked after Yang Tian paid the 5-star crystals. Yang Tian smiled and said, My plan is to not stay on Legoplanet for long, maybe not even 5 days. Oh, 7 Light Rain nodded. There was day and night on Legoplanet. After finding a place to stay, 7 Light Rain brought Yang Tian to stroll around the town. When the sky started to darken, Yang Tian returned to the store to rest. After strolling around the town for a few hours, Yang Tian learned a lot. He learned a lot about cultivators in the universe. He knew that if a cultivator wanted to continuously become stronger, just like the martial artists on Earth, their own realm was important. However, during the early stages, some auxiliary tools were unavoidable. For example, weapons, armor, life aids, and so on. The ores sold in the small stores in the town were the metal materials used to make weapons and armor. Although they looked small, they were worth several 100-star crystals. At the same time, Yang Tian also learned that the majority of cultivators in the universe had to undergo systematic learning before they started traveling in the universe. In the universe, there were also many organizations and powers similar to dojos and academies. The little blue dragon hadn't had enough of the meal during the day. After returning to the room, Yang Tian took out a large number of star crystals for the little blue dragon to lick. He promised that he would make a lot of barbecued meat for it in the future. Yang Tian still had a few thousand star crystals in his storage bracelet. To Yang Tian, these star crystals belonged to the little blue dragon. His portion was almost used up. He didn't want to use the rest of the stellar crystals other than giving them to the little blue dragon. Moreover, these star crystals were not enough to leave this place. In addition, Yang Tian was also very curious about the mysterious small world owned by the star mine owner. There were actually a large number of star crystals inside. If he could find a large number of star crystals inside, it would be of great help to his future cultivation. Therefore, Yang Tian must go to the star miner's small world. The bed in the room was also rectangular. It was covered with thick feathers of an unknown bird and animal skin. It was very comfortable to lie on it. Soon, Yang Tian fell asleep. While sleeping, Yang Tian didn't relax his vigilance. He held the red long saber in his hand. Fortunately, the peaceful night passed quickly. A day in Lugu planet was about 30 hours long. Yang Tian had already woken up before the sun had even risen. Although the price of accommodation was very expensive, the inn was very complete. In the morning, there was hot water. Yang Tian took out his backpack from his storage bracelet and took out his daily necessities. He quickly washed up. Before dawn, he gave the little blue dragon a hot bath. At dawn, after a simple breakfast, Yang Tian walked out of the inn's door. Outside, 7 Light Rain was already waiting. Did you sleep well? Seeing Yang Tian come out, 7 Light Rain greeted him with a smile. Yang Tian nodded. 7 Light Rain looked at Yang Tian's refreshed appearance and said, Let's go. I'll take you to register. I'll vouch for you. Then, you can go to the miner's small world. 7 Light Rain brought Yang Tian to the entrance of the tallest stone building in the town. When 7 Light Rain brought Yang Tian here, Yang Tian found that there were already many people waiting at the door. They were lined up in 2 long lines. Moreover, there was a steady stream of people coming here. Most of these people were cosmic cultivators. They all carried weapons or various kinds of pet beasts. The aura emitted from these people was many times stronger than 7 Light Rains. In addition to these cosmic cultivators, there were many natives of this planet. Just like 7 Light Rain, they vouched for outsiders in hopes of getting a commission. However, only a small number of people could get what they wanted. This was because not everyone could obtain star crystals after entering the miner's small world. If they returned empty-handed, many people would lose their lives inside and never come out again. 7 Light Rain immediately pulled Yang Tian to the back of the line. After lining up, Yang Tian looked at 7 Light Rain standing in front of him and asked, "Are there so many people here every day?" 7 Light Rain turned around and said, "Yes. Our town has about 300 people every day. There are about 1,000 towns like this on Legu planet." Yang Tian was very surprised. In other words, there are more than 300,000 people entering that small world every day? 7 Light Rain nodded. However, only about 200,000 people can come out alive. Moreover, out of these 200,000 people, less than 10,000 people would be able to gain anything. You'll know the details when the time comes. The line moved forward very quickly. In less than 10 minutes, it was Yang Tian's turn. In front of the gate of the management organization, there were 2 tables with advanced equipment on them. The young woman sitting behind the table asked Yang Tian's name and asked Yang Tian to press on a silver-white tablet. 7 Light Rain also pressed on it. The whole process took less than a minute. "Do you want to go in immediately?" After completing the registration, 7 Light Rain asked Yang Tian. Yang Tian nodded. 7 Light Rain quickly said, "Go in. If you can't do it, your life is more important." Yang Tian smiled and nodded. This 7 Light Rain wasn't as cold as other guarantors who only wanted to use people to earn star crystals. Under 7 Light Rain's somewhat worried gaze, Yang Tian turned around and entered the gate. After walking for more than 10 meters, he stepped on an array disk that emitted blue light. Through the array disk's teleportation, he could reach the entrance of the small world. After the blue light flashed in front of him, a scorching aura suddenly assaulted his face. What appeared in front of Yang Tian was a world of lava. Chapter 248. Yang Tian and at least 1,000 other people were currently standing on a huge black reef that protruded out of the lava. This huge reef was surrounded by flowing red lava, and there was a sulfuric smell in the air. "What are you spacing out for? Hurry up and get down." Yang Tian and the little blue dragon had been teleported there. Yang Tian had just scanned his surroundings when someone shouted behind him. Yang Tian immediately walked out of the disk array and turned his head to look. The person who had scolded him was a person completely covered in black armor. This person was wearing a mask on his helmet, even his eyes could not be seen. Based on the aura emitted by this person, Yang Tian guessed that he should be a peak star-grade powerhouse. This person in black armor was clearly a subordinate of the star mine's owner. After Yang Tian had arrived, all sorts of people had continuously walked out of the formation disk. There were men and women, as well as some humans that looked very strange to Yang Tian. After more than 10 minutes, the formation disk was extinguished. Clearly, the teleportation had stopped. There were already more than 1,500 people gathered on this huge reef. When the formation disk stopped teleporting, the person in black armor said loudly, "When the passage opens, you must enter within 10 seconds. If you regret it, you will have to pay 10 star crystals. When you come out, according to the rules, each person will have to pay 20 star crystals." Yang Tian had already heard about this rule from 7 Light Rain. He thought that the star mine's owner didn't need to take any risks to obtain more than 4 million star crystals every day. If they were piled up together, it would probably form a small mountain. As for those who entered, it was tantamount to gambling with their lives. Who knew if the total amount of star crystals that the 200,000 people who came out would be that much? The star mine's owner should be filthy rich. If they didn't go to that small world and rob the star mine's owner, who knew how many star crystals they would obtain? Yang Tian naturally knew that the star mine's owner had been able to stand on the Lego planet for so many years. Given his star-grade cultivation base, he obviously wouldn't be able to keep so many star crystals. He definitely had some big shot backing him up. There must be more than one black reef surrounded by magma. Otherwise, how could more than 300,000 people enter it in one day? As Yang Tian was pondering this, a black entrance suddenly appeared above his head. This black entrance was like a black hole with a diameter of more than 20 meters. There was a dark red halo around the edges that looked like viscous blood. Bang, bang, bang. The black entrance was about 30 meters above Yang Tian and the others' heads. There was a suction force. As soon as it appeared, the people on the reef jumped and shot towards the entrance. The time of 10 breaths was less than a minute. Yang Tian calculated the time and was the last one to jump into the air and enter the black entrance. In less than 3 seconds after Yang Tian's figure entered, the entrance closed. When Yang Tian arrived at the entrance of the small world, Ao Chu also received news that Yang Tian had entered the small world. Yang Tian's name might seem rather common on Earth, but in the universe there were very few people with the same name. On the Legu planet, this person had just arrived. Ao Gu was 100% sure that this Yang Tian was the Yang Tian he was looking for. What do we do? He's about to enter. If I stop him now, it'll be very troublesome. I'll lose a lot. You have to know that these star crystals don't all belong to me, the star mine's owner said helplessly after informing Ao Chu. Ao Chu smiled. There is no need to trouble you, mine master. I will go over. The star mine's owner nodded. Given your current cultivation base, there won't be any danger inside. However, finding and killing him won't be easy. Nobody can predict what will happen inside. Thank you for your reminder, mine master, Ao Chu said. I have already decided. The star mine's owner nodded. With a casual wave of his hand, an array disk appeared at Ao Chu's feet. Rich powerhouses in the universe would set up many teleportation array disks in their own territories. This way, it would be much easier to control their territories. As soon as the array disk appeared, Ao Chu immediately walked onto it and disappeared into the blue light. After Ao Chu left, the star mine's owner curled his lips. With a wave of his hand, he put away the array disk. As soon as he entered the black passage, he felt dizzy. During this process, Yang Tian completely lost his sense of direction. He had no place to exert his strength, so he could only move forward with an invisible force. Beside him, the others were the same. Some of them opened their mouths wide out of fear and let out roars. The air in the passage was extremely thin. Yang Tian couldn't use the power of the air to adjust his body. In this environment, the roars of the people beside him were extremely low. This situation didn't last long. After about 3 minutes, Yang Tian saw a light spot appear in front of him. This light was a small dot at first. Then, it rapidly enlarged in his eyes. After a few seconds, Yang Tian felt that his body was completely surrounded by light. Yang Tian couldn't help but blink when he suddenly came to a place with strong light from the dim passage. Pring pring pring, in the blink of an eye, the sound of collisions constantly entered Yang Tian's ears. Yang Tian reacted instantly. He stretched out his hands and instantly felt his hands touch something cold and hard. The force of the collision was extremely great, but at that moment, Yang Tian bent his arms and deflected the force of the collision. At this time, the surrounding situation appeared clearly in front of Yang Tian's eyes. Behind him was also a black passage. The things that many people bumped into were all broken stones. These irregular stones floated in the air and were not affected by the gravity of the ground. The people who rushed out of the black passage were attracted by the ground and fell down. The ground below them was about 100 meters above the place where Yang Tian and the others appeared. The gravity of the ground was very strong. It was at least twice as strong as the Earth's gravity. Pring pring pring, Yang Tian heard the sound of a human body crashing onto the ground again. Many people who were not strong fell to the ground. Although they didn't die, they lay on the ground for a long time and couldn't get up. In the process of falling, Yang Tian adjusted his angle with the force of the air. His feet touched the ground and he stood steadily. In the process of his feet touching the ground, Yang Tian felt that the ground under his feet was very hard. It was as hard as granite. After landing, Yang Tian glanced around. This was a world made of white gravel. In the gray sky, there were many white gravel floating, and even higher up, there were many huge mist-like spheres that flickered with red electric sparks. Chapter 249. How could he find the stellar crystal in this small world? Yang Tian stood where he was and scanned his surroundings. Many people immediately got up after falling into the rubble. They quickly got up and ran into the distance, their figures quickly disappearing from Yang Tian's line of sight. Everyone went in different directions, with the tunnel as the center. It seemed that there was no fixed direction to find the stellar crystal in this small world. It was all based on luck. It was the first time that Yang Tian had come here. He was very curious about this world. He randomly chose a direction and looked at the white rubble under his feet. These white rubble had no pattern at all. It was full of holes, and some of them even had patterns on them. Looking at the patterns on the rubble, Yang Tian was shocked. These rubble looked like the rubble that was formed after the rubble of a stone building. The rubble was of different sizes. Some were as small as sand, and some were as big as mountains. As he was moving forward, Yang Tian also found a huge, broken stone pillar. There was no need to guess anymore. It was obvious that these endless white rubble were once part of a huge building. Yang Tian casually picked up a white rock from the ground and squeezed it. Slap! Yang Tian used a lot of strength to break the white rock in his hand. It was very hard, and the stone was very fine and even. This kind of stone was the best stone for building and carving. If this was on Earth, this kind of white and pure stone would be very expensive. Yang Tian, who came from Earth, of course liked it very much. He dug out a huge rock that was about 5 meters long and 3 meters in diameter and put it into his storage bracelet. After putting away the huge rock, Yang Tian randomly chose a direction and quickly moved forward. Although it was called a small world, Yang Tian could see that this world was very big. He could not see the end of it, and it was all white rocks. And in the sky, there were many red, fog-like spheres that were flashing with lightning. They were so densely packed that they looked like huge bombs that could fall at any time. And even higher up, there was a vast starry sky with many fist-sized stars. It was because of the light from these stars that this world was so bright. Boom! While Yang Tian was moving forward, a loud boom suddenly rang out in the sky. Yang Tian looked up. It turned out that 2 red mist-like spheres had collided while flying, causing a violent explosion. In that instant, the red light produced by the explosion of the 2 mist-like spheres illuminated the entire small world. At the same time, countless huge red lightning bolts extended in all directions like tree root. Some of the lightning bolts struck the other mist-like spheres, causing them to explode. Boom, boom, boom! The dense red mist-like spheres in the sky were like bombs in an ammunition depot. When one of them exploded, it would cause the others to explode as well. Continuous explosions rang out. During the process of these spheres exploding, the red lightning that extended out naturally struck the ground. Moreover, it was very dense. Pring, 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 the dense red lightning pillars struck the gravel below. It was like a bomb had exploded, splashing a burst of white gravel rain. Many of the humans walking among these gravel were very unlucky. They could not dodge in time and were struck by the thick red lightning, exploding into clouds of blood mist. Yang Tian's reaction was very fast. When the lightning struck, the first thing he did was to hide under a huge piece of gravel. There were many red mist-like spheres suspended in the sky. They were detonated one by one, and from the initial point of explosion, they continued to spread in all directions. When the sky above his head calmed down and the sound of the explosion spread into the distance, Yang Tian stuck his head out from under the boulder and looked up at the sky. What surprised him was that after the mist-like spheres exploded, many blue light spots appeared in the sky. Stellar crystals. Seeing such blue light spots, Yang Tian's eyes widened. Xiaolong, let's go up. Yang Tian looked at the little blue dragon on his shoulder and said excitedly, Zhizhi. The little blue dragon cried out excitedly and immediately transformed into a dragon more than 10 meters long. After Yang Tian sat on the little blue dragon's back, the little blue dragon immediately flew into the sky with Yang Tian on its back. The blue light spots that appeared in the sky 1,000 meters above the ground were stellar crystals. After these stellar crystals appeared, they slowly descended. They were not scattered, but in pieces. Looking from the ground, they looked like clusters of stars. If one was like Yang Tian and flew into the sky with exotic beasts that could fly, they would be able to reap great rewards. If one's strength reached a certain level and could fly, it would be the same. Would things be so simple? Obviously not. When the little blue dragon flew into the sky with Yang Tian on its back, they were only a few hundred meters above the ground. There was still some distance between them and the stellar crystals, but a strong resistance appeared in the sky. It was as if the air was being compressed. The higher they went, the more viscous it became. The increasingly strong resistance caused the little blue dragon's flying speed to become slower and slower. When they were about 200 meters away from the stellar crystals, the little blue dragon's flying speed was already the same as an ordinary person's stroll. At this time, Yang Tian also discovered that there were many people flying in the sky like him on exotic beasts. Some of them were even using extremely small flying devices. What made Yang Tian happy was that the exotic beasts and flying devices these people rode were not as high as the little blue dragon. After sweeping a glance below, Yang Tian no longer paid attention to the others and focused his attention on the stellar crystals above his head. Suddenly, something that shocked Yang Tian happened. That was because a dense cluster of red spheres had appeared once again at a higher altitude, slowly pressing down on the ground. Yang Tian and Little Azure Dragon did not feel anything when they looked at the red mist-like spheres from below, but when they were so close to them, Yang Tian and Little Azure Dragon felt immense pressure. This kind of pressure came from the heart. That was because every mist-like sphere was very large, at least 30 meters in diameter. Their surface was constantly flickering with electric sparks, each as thick as an arm. At the same time, these red mist-like spheres that suddenly appeared were very close to each other, less than 50 meters away. If two of them collided at such a close distance, only death would await them. As soon as these red spheres appeared, the people flying in the sky all descended, not daring to get close to these red spheres. The falling speed of these spheres was obviously faster than the stellar crystals. Some of the stellar crystals at the highest point were immediately swallowed when they came into contact with these red spheres. Fortunately, they did not explode. How did these things come about? A huge question mark appeared in Yang Tian's mind. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.